Ẹ kú kàlẹ̀ ń bẹ̀ òun ọkùnrin, obìnrin, ọmọdé àti àgbà olólùfẹ́ yín Ìbùkúnolúwa ọmọ Sànúsí tí ẹ mọ̀ sí Àpèkẹ́ tún dé pẹ̀lú àrà ọ̀tọ̀ àlọ́ tó kún fún ọgbọ́n, òye àti ọ̀rọ̀ ìjìnlẹ̀ Yorùbá. Ẹ máa bá wa ká lọ. Àṣà Yorùbá kò mọ̀ ní parun.
Mo kí wa ní ibi gbogbo tí a ti ń gbọ́ mi. Ṣàlàáfíà ni mo bá wa. Orúkọ tèmi ni Ìbùkún ọmọ Sànúsí. Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ èèyàn mọ̀ mí sí Lady IBK, ṣùgbọ́n fún àǹfààní ìtàn lédè Yorùbá, a lè pè mí ní Àpèkẹ́ Adé. Ìtàn tí mo mú wá fún wa lónìí tàbí tí mo fẹ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀ fún wa lónìí jẹ́ ìtàn tí ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ fẹ́ràn gidi gan, láti ọwọ́ D.O. Fágúnwà, ògbójú ọdẹ nínú igbó Irúnmọlẹ̀. Ìtàn àkàgbádùn ni, ìtàn tí móríyá wá ni. Mi wá fẹ́ ká gbọ́ ìtàn yìí lásán, mo fẹ́ ká gbọ́ lágbọ̀gbádùn, ká sì mú ohun kan tàbí méjì jọ jáde kúrò nínú ẹ̀. Apá kìíní tí màá fi bẹ̀rẹ̀, ó sọ̀rọ̀ lórí àkàrà ògùn tó jẹ́ ògbójú ọdẹ àti àwọn òbí rẹ̀, iṣu tó ṣú, ibi tó ti wá gan, bí ọ̀rọ̀ ayé rẹ̀ gan ṣe bẹ̀rẹ̀. Ẹ má lọ bí kankan, ìtàn náà bẹ̀rẹ̀ báyìí. Ẹ̀yin ọ̀rẹ́ mi, bí òwe ni à ń lu ìlù ògídìgbò, ọlọ́gbọ́n ní jó ọ̀mọ̀ràn ní ìmọ̀. Ìtàn tí wọ́n sọ yìí, ìlù ògídìgbò ni. Èmi ni ẹni tí ó lu ìlù náà, ẹ̀yin sì ni ọlọ́gbọ́n tí ó jó, ẹ̀yin lọ̀mọ̀ràn tí ó mọ̀ pẹ̀lú. Àwọn àgbà máa pa òwe kan, ẹni bó lọ ṣe ń pa. Wọ́n ní bí eégún ẹni bá jóre, orí á yá ni, tó ṣe bí òwe o. Wọ́n fẹ́ kí ẹ jó ìlù mi bí ìgbà tí yànmùyánmú bá ń jó ìbẹ̀ǹbẹ̀, tí ó ń ta ẹsẹ̀ wàìwàì tí ẹsẹ̀ rẹ̀ kò sì bá ìlù dọ́gba. Ṣùgbọ́n kàkà bẹ́ẹ̀, kí ẹ jó ìlù náà dáadáa, kí ẹ jó tayọ̀tayọ̀, kí ẹ jó tẹ̀ríntẹ̀rín, tó bẹ̀ tí àwọn ènìyàn yóò fi máa ná yín lówó, tí wọn yóò máa ju aṣọ sí yín lójú ijó, táwọn ọkùnrin ó mọ̀ dọ̀bálẹ̀, táwọn obìnrin ó sì mọ̀ kúnlẹ̀ níwájú yín nígbà tí ijó yín bá ń dùn mọ́ wọn. Ṣùgbọ́n bí ẹ bá sì ń fẹ́ kí ijó yín dùn dára sí i, ohun méjì ni ẹ ní láti ṣe. Èkíní ni pé nígbà tí ẹnìkan bá ń sọ̀rọ̀ nínú ìtàn yìí, ẹ ó fi ara yín sí ipò olúwa rẹ̀. Ẹ ó máa sọ̀rọ̀ bí ẹni pé ẹ̀yin gan-an ni. Bí ẹnìkan bá sì ń dá ẹnìkejì lóhùn, ẹ ó ka ìtàn náà bí ẹni pé ẹ̀yin ni ẹ jókòó tí ẹnìkan ń bá yín sọ̀rọ̀, tí ẹ sì ń fún olúwa rẹ̀ ní èsì tí ó yẹ. Gẹ́gẹ́ bí ọ̀mọ̀ràn pẹ̀lú, ohun kejì tẹ́ ṣe ni pé ẹ ó máa tìkára yín fa àwọn ọgbọ́n jọ bí ẹ bá ti ń ka ìtàn yín lọ tàbí bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣe ń gbọ́ ìtàn yìí. N wá fẹ́ sọ̀rọ̀ púpọ̀ ní ìbẹ̀rẹ̀ yìí kó má bàa dàbí ìsọkúsọ, àti bí ẹni tó fojú ọ̀nà sílẹ̀ tó ń bá inú igbó kiri. Wọ́n á gbé ìlù mi nísìn, wọ́n sì mọ lù ú. Mo sì fẹ́ kẹ́ ẹ tún agbádá yín náà ṣe, kẹ́ ẹ ju apá rẹ̀ lé èjìká yín, kí ẹ múra sílẹ̀ fún ijó, kí ọ̀rọ̀ náà bàa lè papọ̀ bí ọ̀rọ̀ tí ó wí pé èmi lè jó, ìwọ lè lù, kòkòrò méjì ṣe kí ni kòkòrò méjì pàdé. Òwe àgbà náà ni. Ní òwúrọ̀ ọjọ́ dáradára kan báyìí ni, ojú ọjọ́ mọ́ kedere, ìkùukù lọ sí ilé rẹ̀, àwọn ẹranko ìgbẹ́ sùn lọ, àwọn ẹranko ilẹ̀ ń ju àmúwá Ọlọ́run, àwọn yẹn sì ń yin ẹlẹ́dàá wọn. Atẹ́gùn àlàáfíà ń fẹ́ lu àwọn ewéko ìgbẹ́, gbogbo wọn dúdú mìrìnmìrìn. Òòrùn yọ ní ìlà oòrùn nínú ọlá tọ́lọ́run fún. Ó tan ìmọ́lẹ̀ sínú ayé. Àwọn ọmọ ènìyàn sì bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí rin ìrìnkèrindò wọn káàkiri. Èmi pẹ̀lú jókòó lórí àga mi, mo fẹ̀yìntì gbẹ̀gbẹ̀rẹ́gbẹ̀, mò ń gbádùn ara mi. Kò pẹ́ púpọ̀ ni mo jókòó ni mo bá rí ọkùnrin arúgbó kan tó tọ̀ mí wá. Ó kí mi, èmi náà kí i. Níwọ̀n bí mo sì ti wòye pé ó fẹ́ jókòó, mo gbé àga fún un. Mo kọ ojú àga tirẹ̀ sí tèmi. Lẹ́yìn ìgbà táwa méjì jókòó tán, ó bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ṣàwàdà, a rẹ́rìn-ín bí ẹni pa tilẹ̀ ti mọ ara wa rí. Ṣùgbọ́n kò pẹ́ púpọ̀ tí a ṣe èyí náà ni mo kíyèsí tí ọkùnrin náà ní ẹ̀dùn ọkàn kanlẹ̀, bí ẹni pé ó ń ronú ohun ńlá kan. Bí mo sì ti ń pètè àti béèrè ìdí rẹ̀ tí ó fi ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀, òun pàápàá bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí sọ̀rọ̀ wípé mú ohun ìkọ̀wé rẹ̀, bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí kọ ìtàn tí èmi yóò sọ wọ̀nyí sílẹ̀. Má ṣe fi sílẹ̀ di ọjọ́ mìíràn kí àǹfààní rẹ̀ kí ó má bàa rí ọ kọjá. Lẹ́yìn tí ó sọ báyìí tán, mo yára sáré lọ sí ibi tí àwọn ìkọ̀wé mi wà. Mo kó wọn wá sí orí tábìlì, mo tún àga mi ṣe, mo sì bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí retí kí ó máa bá ọ̀rọ̀ rẹ̀ lọ. ló bá sọ̀rọ̀ ó ní báyìí pé èmi ní àkàrà ògùn, ọ̀kan nínú àwọn ògbójú ọdẹ ayé àtijọ́. Ọdẹ ni bàbá tí ó bí mi ń ṣe, ológun ní í ṣe pẹ̀lú. Bàbá mi ní ẹgbẹ̀rún àdó, àtọ̀ rẹ̀ jẹ́ ẹgbẹ̀rin, òǹdè sì jẹ́ ẹgbẹ̀ta. Ọ̀tàlúgba ṣìgìdì ní bẹ ní ilé wa, ọ̀sán yìí bẹ kò sì ṣe é fẹnu sọ. Àjọ̀nú ní máa ń ṣọ́ ilédè bàbá mi bí òun kò bá sí ní ilé, nítorí kò sẹ́ni tí í wọ ilé rẹ̀ lẹ́yìn rẹ̀. Èèwọ̀ ni, àmọ́ bó ti lógùn tó kó kápá ìyá mi, nítorí ògbólógbòó àjẹ́ ní í ṣe. Lákòókò ìgbà kan, ọmọ 9 ni bàbá mi bí, èmi sì ní àgbà gbogbo wọn. Ìyàwó 4 ni ó pẹ̀lú ìyá mi ní ilé bàbá mi. Ìyálé ni ìyá mi jẹ́ sí gbogbo wọn. Ìyá mi bímọ 4, ìyàwó tó tẹ̀lé bí 3, ẹ̀kẹta bí 2, ẹ̀kẹrin ò tilẹ̀ bí rárá. Ló bá ṣe ní ọjọ́ kan, ìyá mi àti ọ̀kan nínú àwọn ìyàwó wọ̀nyí jà. Wọ́n sì kó ẹjọ́ náà lọ sí ọ̀dọ̀ bàbá mi, ó sì dá ìyá mi lẹ́bi, èyí tó mú kí ìyá mi bínú púpọ̀, ó sì pinnu láti gbẹ̀san. Ó bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí í wu ìwà ìjẹ rẹ̀ tó bẹ́ẹ̀ tí ó pa ọmọ 8 nínú àwọn ọmọ bàbá mi, ó sì pa ìyàwó 3 kí ọdún náà tó parí. Ó wá jẹ́ pé ó kù èmi nìkan gẹ́gẹ́ bí ọmọ, ó sì kù òun nìkan gẹ́gẹ́ bí ìyàwó. Òní ọ̀rẹ́ mi, bí o kò bá tíì ní ìyàwó, jọ̀wọ́ ronú kí o tó ní o. Lóòótọ́ ó yẹ kí ìyàwó rẹ lẹ́wà, kí ẹ má bàa tètè sú ara yín, ṣùgbọ́n síbẹ̀ ìbá ní èyí mọ̀. Kò sì dára kí ìyàwó rẹ má ní ọgbọ́n lórí, nítorí kí ẹ bàa lè bá ara yín jọ. Ṣùgbọ́n eléyìí pàápàá gan ò tó nǹkan. Ohun tó ṣe pàtàkì jù ni pé kí ìyàwó rẹ kó gbúdọ̀ dára. Níwọ̀n bí ó ti jẹ́ pé ìyàwó rẹ ni yóò máa wá oúnjẹ fún, òun ni yóò máa bu omi fún, òun ni yóò sì mọ púpọ̀ jù nínú àṣírí rẹ̀. Ọlọ́run ti dá wọn mọ ní tìmọ̀tìmọ̀ tó bẹ́ẹ̀ tó jẹ́ pé ṣàṣà ọ̀nà ni wọn kò lè gbà mú un. Nígbà tí mo bá sì ń sọ ohun tí ojú bàbá mi rí nípa ìyàwó rẹ̀ yìí, ẹ̀rù yóò bà ọ́ gidi. Ó ṣe ní ọjọ́ kan, bàbá mi múra ó lọ sí ìgbé ọdẹ. Nígbà tí ó sì pẹ́ púpọ̀ tí ó ti ń ṣe ọdẹ rẹ̀, ó jókòó lé orí igi kan, ó ń sinmi. Kò pẹ́ púpọ̀ tí ó jókòó yìí náà ni ó wo iwájú, tí ó rí tí ilẹ̀ bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí í là, tí èéfín sì bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí í rú jáde. Láìpẹ́, èéfín yìí bo agbègbè ibi tí bàbá mi wà tó bẹ́ẹ̀ tí kò fi ríran mọ́. Gbogbo iwájú ṣókùnkùn dúdú. Ibi tí ó sì ti ń wá ọ̀nà àti sálọ ni ó tún rí tí èéfín yìí bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí parapọ̀ sí ojú kan. Kí ó sì tó ṣẹ́ ojú pẹ́, èéfín yìí ti parapọ̀ tó ń di ọkùnrin géńdé kan tí ó ń tì dà lọ́wọ́. Ó ń bọ̀ ní ọ̀dọ̀ bàbá mi. Bí bàbá mi sì ti kiri mọ́lẹ̀ tí ó ń sálọ, ọkùnrin yìí pè kí ó dúró, sì bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí sọ̀rọ̀ pé, ìwọ kò mọ̀ pé èmi kì í ṣe aráyé ni. Òní ni mo ti ìsálú ọ̀run dè, torí tirẹ̀ ni mo tilẹ̀ ṣe wá pẹ̀lú. Wá láti pa ọ́, ibikíbi tí ó wù kí o lè sádé lónìí, àfi bí mo pa ọ́ dandan. Nígbà tó sọ tán báyìí, ẹ̀rù bà bàbá mi, ṣùgbọ́n síbẹ̀ ó ṣe ọkàn ọkùnrin, ó sì wí pé, lóòótọ́ bí mo ti rí ọ yìí, mo ti mọ̀ pé ará ọ̀run ni ìwọ ń ṣe. Idà tí ó sì wà lọ́wọ́ rẹ pẹ̀lú idà tí ta ìjàmbá fún mi ni. Ṣùgbọ́n jọ̀ọ́, èmi bẹ̀ ọ́ ni. Mo sì fi Ọlọ́run alààyè fi ọ́ bú. Mo ṣàì sọ ohun tí mo ṣe gan fún mi. Ọkùnrin dáhùn ó ní, ìwọ kò mọ̀ pé ìwọ àti ẹ̀gbọ́n tó jẹ́ tirẹ̀ ti ṣe ẹlẹ́dàá rẹ̀, àti pé ìwọ ti bà iṣẹ́ ọwọ́ rẹ̀ jẹ́, tó bẹ́ẹ̀ tí ìwọ fi rán ènìyàn 11 sí ọ̀run ní àkókò tí Ọlọ́run kò dá fún wọn. Ọ̀rọ̀ tó sọ yìí ya bàbá mi lẹ́nu púpọ̀, nítorí bí ó tilẹ̀ jẹ́ pé ó ní oògùn púpọ̀, síbẹ̀ kì í ṣe ẹnikẹ́ni ní ibi. Ó sì dáhùn pé, bí bá ṣe èyí tí wọ́n ń sọ yìí ni, ọ̀tọ̀ lẹ́ni tó ń wá ò kì í ṣe mí. Látọjọ́ tí mo ti dé inú ayé yìí, kò ṣẹ́nìkan níbi rí. Ẹni ẹlẹ́ni ò lè rìn kí n sọ pé inú ń bí mi. Olówó ò lè lówó kí n máa ṣe lára. Ó ló jẹ́ ń jẹ àfi bí mo lọ ní tèmi. Mo ò ṣẹ́yàn lọ́gbẹ́ rí, mo sì yìnbọn lu ọmọ ọlọ́mọ. Ẹyà tí ó fi pa mí báyìí lérò ohun tí èmi kò ṣe. Bàbá mi ti sọ báyìí tán, òun náà fèsì ó ní, lóòótọ́ ìwọ kọ́ ló fi ọwọ́ ara rẹ̀ pa ẹnikẹ́ni, ṣùgbọ́n ìwọ a máa kó ìyà rẹ̀ jẹ ọmọ ọlọ́mọ. Ìwọ fi ojú sílẹ̀ lọ fẹ́ ògbólógbòó àjẹ́ nítorí ẹwà ara lásán. Oore ló ṣe bí òun ṣe. Ẹ̀jẹ̀ àwọn ìyàwó rẹ̀ wá ké pè ọ́ bí. Ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ àwọn ọmọ rẹ̀ méjèèjọ kò wá wà lọ́rùn rẹ̀. Síbẹ̀síbẹ̀ ìwọ tún lẹ́nu rẹ̀ sọ pé ìwọ kò ṣe ibi rí. àfi bí mo pa ọ́ dandan. Lẹ́yìn eléyìí ni bàbá mi wá rántí irú ìyàwó tí òun ní. Ó dáhùn ó sì wí pé lóòótọ́ mo rí ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ mi náà wáyé. Mo ní ìyàwó tí n ò lè kápá rẹ̀, mo kàn ń ṣe bí ọkọ lásán ni. Ohun tí èmi bá ti ṣe èmi kò ṣe é. Ọ̀nà tí èmi bá ti gbà èmi kò gbà. Ẹni tí èmi bá pa ni mo tún ń pọ̀n. Èrò ìsábùrọ̀rùn wá ṣáà dáríjì mi. Nígbà tọkùnrin náà gbọ́ báyìí, ó dáríjì bàbá mi, kò sì pa á mọ́, ṣùgbọ́n sọ fún pé bí ó bá ti dé ilé tó pa ìyá mi, ó da orí kọ̀ọ̀nà igbó, ó bá ibẹ̀ lọ. Nígbà tó lọ tán, bàbá mi gbé ìbọn, ó ń bọ̀ ní ilé. Ó sì wá jẹ́ pé ní ọ̀nà ibi tí ó ń bá lọ yìí, ó ní láti kan oko ilá rẹ̀ kan báyìí kí ó tó dé ilé. Nígbà tí ó sì fi máa dé ibi oko náà, ilẹ̀ ti ń ṣú, òṣùpá sì ti yọ. Bí ó sì ti dé ibẹ̀ tí ó gbé ojú wo òkè, tí ó sì ń wo ìpẹ̀kun oko náà lódì kejì, ó rí ẹnìkan ń bọ̀. Ó sì yára ságun igi kan lọ, ó ń fẹ́ wo ohun tí olúwa rẹ̀ yóò ṣe. Tààrà tí ẹni náà ń bọ̀, inú òkìtì ọ̀gán ńlá kan báyìí ló bọ́ sí. Kò sì pẹ́ púpọ̀ náà tí ó bọ́ sí ibẹ̀ nígbà tí àgbọ̀nrín kan jáde láti inú òkìtì ọ̀gán náà, tí ó bọ́ sí inú oko tí ó ń ká ilá jẹ. Ni bàbá mi bá da ojú ìbọn kọ́, àfi wọ̀ lówó ná mọ́ lórí. Dídún tí ìbọn náà sì dùn, igbe ènìyàn ni àgbọ̀nrín náà sì kí ó ní mo gbé o. Inú ahéré tí ń bẹ ní ibi oko ilá yìí ni bàbá mi sùn mọ́jú ọjọ́ náà. Nígbà tí ilẹ̀ ọjọ́ kejì sì mọ́, ó lọ wo ibi tí ó ti yìnbọn lu àgbọ̀nrín, kò sì rí nǹkan kan àfi ẹ̀jẹ̀. Ó bá bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí tọ̀sẹ̀ ẹ̀jẹ̀ náà lọ. Ìyàlẹ́nu ló sì jẹ́ fún láti rí pé ọ̀nà ilé ni ẹ̀jẹ̀ náà bá lọ. Ó tọ ipasẹ̀ rẹ̀ títí ó fi dé ilé kókó. Ṣùgbọ́n nígbà tí ó dé àárín ìlú, kò rí ẹ̀jẹ̀ náà mọ́ àfìgbà tí ó kù díẹ̀ kí ó wọ ilé wa, tí ó tún rí ẹ̀jẹ̀ náà. Ó sì tọ̀sẹ̀ rẹ̀ wọ yàrá ìyá mi. Èmi pàápàá kò sùn mọ́jú ní ilé ní ọjọ́ náà nítorí bí bàbá mi kò bá ti sí ní ilé, èmi kì í fẹ́ sùn ní ilé wa nítorí àwọn àǹjọ̀nú. Wọ́n ní jẹ́ kólúwa rẹ̀ sinmi lóru. Ẹ̀kọ̀ọ̀kan ni ìyá mi pàápàá máa ń sùn ibẹ̀. Ibi tí bàbá mi ti ń ṣílẹ̀kùn yàrá ìyá mi lé ọjọ́ tí mo dé, èmi náà ń wọlé bọ̀. Nígbà tí ó sì ṣetán tí a wọlé, tí mo rí ìyá mi, díẹ̀ ló kù kí n sá lọ. Láti orí títí dé èjìká rẹ̀, tí ènìyàn ní. Ṣùgbọ́n wá wò ó láti èjìká dé ẹsẹ̀ rẹ̀. Àgbọ̀nrín pátápátá gbáà ni, ẹ̀jẹ̀ bò ó lára, èyí sì ń kún wọ̀nyí. Nígbà tí bàbá mi fi ọwọ́ kàn báyìí, ó ti kú, ó sì ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí í rà. Àṣọ́hun ni ó di àgbọ̀nrín tó wá ń ká ilá jẹ lóru. Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni ìyá mi ṣe tó kú o. Kò sì ju oṣù kan lọ lẹ́yìn rẹ̀ ni bàbá mi náà kú pẹ̀lú. Láti ọjọ́ náà ni mo sì ti wá di ọmọ aláìní ìyá àti ọkùnrin aláìní bàbá. Báyìí ni ìtàn àwọn òbí mi máa ṣe parí o. Ó wá kù tèmi. Ó kú iṣẹ́ o, ọ̀rẹ́ mi. Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni apá kìíní ìtàn àkàrà ogun ìgbójú ọdẹ nínú igbó Orúnmọlẹ̀ ṣe lọ. Ẹ rí bí ó ṣe pàdé, àbí báwo la ṣe fẹ́ sọ, bọ́rọ̀ bàbá rẹ̀ ṣe jẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ìyá rẹ̀. Ìyẹn ń sọ fún wa wípé ká máa ṣọ́ra ẹni tá a bá máa fẹ́ lọ́kọ tàbí láya. Gbogbo ìrìn àjò bàbá rẹ̀ àti ìyá rẹ̀ tán ṣe kú, òun ni àkàrà ogun fi bẹ̀rẹ̀ fún wa. Lọ́sẹ̀ tó ń bọ̀, àkàrà ogun máa bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí sọ nípa ìgbà ìkíní rẹ̀ nínú igbó Orúnmọlẹ̀. Mi wá fẹ́ ká má ṣàláì kópa nínú apá kejì ìtàn yìí torí ìtàn yìí ti ń ṣarajọ bọ̀ díẹ̀díẹ̀, ó ń rúnú bọ̀. Nǹkan sì kì í ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ ràgó ògbójú ọdẹ nínú igbó Orúnmọlẹ̀. Nítorí náà ńkọ́, lọ́sẹ̀ tó ń bọ̀ mo fẹ́ ká gbáradì fún un. Èmi wá ní òun ò ní fẹ́ lòmíì ṣe mí. Orúkọ mi náà ni Ìbùkún ọmọ Sànúsí, tí àwọn kan mọ̀ sí Lady IBK, ṣùgbọ́n fún àǹfààní ìtàn yìí, ẹ lè pè mí ní Àpèkẹ́ Adé. Títí màá tún wá fi máa rí wa ní ọ̀sẹ̀ tó ń bọ̀. Ẹ má ṣàìṣe ohun tí mi ò ní ṣe o. Àbí ẹ má dẹ̀ ṣe ohun tí mi ò ní ṣe ni mo fẹ́ sọ. Títí ìgbà kan náà, ẹ máa yọ̀tọ̀ mi kẹ́ sì máa gbádùn. Ire o.
Right. Good evening, good afternoon, and good night, wherever you are watching us from. My own name is Samuel Oludare Yerokun, and I've brought you highlights from around here. And the news highlights we've picked two, and I was kicking off with the first one, which is local to Scotland. This comes all the way from the Daily Records under the caption, Scots should still get coronavirus vaccine even if they are previously caught the bug, medical chief says. John Rain, chief executive of the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, MHRA, will approve the Pfizer coronavirus jab, believe it is as safe as any general vaccine. People who will have previously caught coronavirus should be completely confident about receiving the vaccine, a medical chief has said. Chief executive of the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory, John Rain, has urged everyone who is eligible to get the jab when it's available to them. She said the new vaccine, which arrived in Scotland on Saturday, is as safe as any general vaccine ahead of the first doses being administered on Tuesday. Pregnant women and some immunocompromised people are being advised not to take the only Pfizer jab because there's not yet full data about how it could affect them. But Dr. Rain, who leads the regulator which approved the jab, confirmed there are no special precautions or advice for people who've already had COVID-19, the Mirror reports. That means if people who were previously sick are offered the jab, they should take it just as anyone else. That is, despite the fact they might have some immunity already. And that comes all the way from Daily Record. Under the caption, Scots should still get coronavirus vaccine, even if they are previously caught the bug, medical chief says. And moving on to the second news highlight we've picked for today. This has to do with asylum, immigration, and of course, Brexit date. That is the deadline for the 31st of this month. UK races to deport asylum seekers ahead of Brexit. And that comes all the way from The Guardian. From January, Britain can no longer return them to the EU, but the rush for the deadline may be denying them a proper screening. Scores of vulnerable asylum seekers, including suspected victims of trafficking, are scheduled to be deported this week as the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, ramps up removal operations ahead of Brexit. 3 flights this week, 2 to Germany and 1 to France, with possible transfers to Austria, Poland, Spain, and Lithuania are planned, and opposition from campaigners who say they have evidence that cases are being rushed through to avoid Patel's own published policy on identifying trafficking victims. The development comes days after Patel branded those calling for last week's deportation flight to Jamaica to be stopped as do-gooding celebrities, a label that prompted victims of the Windrush scandal to describe the Home Secretary as deeply insulting and patronizing. Groups monitoring the impending round of flights to the EU say that the Home Office's planned operation to remove potential trafficking and torture victims without proper screening is unlawful and breaches a recent interim High Court order. The flights are operating under the EU's Dublin Convention legislation that allows states to return people to an EU country where they have already made an asylum claim, a right the UK retains during the Brexit transition period. That comes all the way from The Guardian under the caption, UK races to deport asylum seekers ahead of Brexit.
Parenting Tips with MM. Last week, I started a series titled Power in the Words of Parents. This is the second part of that series. In the first part, I encouraged parents to recognize that there is power in their words when we speak. Our words are not ordinary, they carry power, and that they should employ that power to bless their children. That is something every single one of us can do. As an example, you can just lay your hands on your children and say something like this. Blessed shall you be when you go out and when you come in. God is your protection, so they shall no evil befall you, neither shall any plague come nigh your dwelling. You shall not die, but live and declare the works of the Lord. In Jesus' name. That's a short blessing. Speak that over your children, and of course, you can make up several different blessings with your own words. Make a habit of laying hands on your children and blessing them regularly. You will not regret it at all. Even as you are speaking these words, it has a way of painting a picture of a special future in the mind of the child that is being blessed. They also encourage your child to look forward to the manifestation of those words in his life. It creates a positive mindset in the child, and that's an advantage to blessing our children. You have the power and the privilege to speak blessings upon your children, so make use of it. In continuation, today we will be talking about words of affirmation. Words of affirmation. One dictionary meaning of the word affirmation is to declare something to be true. Employing words of affirmation is about communicating to our children something that we know to be good and true about them. Sometimes we tend to overlook these things and look out only for the negative sides. No, let's start looking out for the positive sides. We can always find something good to say if we are intentional about it. You can comment on their personalities, their efforts, their improvements, etc. Our children get to develop their sense of identity by getting clues from what we say to them, especially when they're small. And it's also very important in the teenage years. The question is, what words are you planting into the hearts of your children? Let's take a short break now and we'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Parenting Tips with MM. We are currently on a series titled Power in the Words of Parents. And today we are looking at the topic words of affirmation. Your words will definitely contribute to the emotional development of your child. Here are some examples of words of affirmation that we can use. You did a great job. Or you can say, you are really becoming good at this. You really make me glad. Or you can say, you are so responsible and I'm really proud of you. I'm really grateful to God for giving you to me. Wow, you did that so well. Here's another one. You are such a blessing to this family. Every parent would like to have a child like you. I really like the fact that I can rely on you. That's another one. These are just a few examples of words of affirmation. Use words that are fitting and appropriate for the moment. Remember that you are not flattering or dishing out empty praises. You are communicating what is true and good as is relevant to the child and the moment. It can just be, I enjoy spending time with you. It will make your child feel loved, wanted, and that closeness that develops out of that will help you to impact and influence your child a lot better. Sometimes parents can become guilty of only scolding and correcting. Yes, it is important to correct our children when they do something wrong. What I'm advocating is that we should strike a balance. Instead of commenting only when your child has done something wrong, from now on, intentionally catch your child doing something right. Take advantage of those moments to sow words of affirmation into the child. It will build your child up in so many ways. I believe this has blessed you. Thank you once again for sharing this time with me. My name is Esinenkak. Please join our online community on Facebook and Instagram. The name to search for is Parenting Tips with Until next time, I'd like you to remain blessed and to remember that God keeps all of His promises.
Thank you for joining us again for today's live streaming on OY Media Scotland. Our programs start by 7:45. That is what we started from December, and that kicks off with Itan Lede Yoruba that you have heard. That is by or with Lady Ibike Sanusi. That is Apeke Ade. By 6 p.m. we have our news highlights, and of course at 6:05, for some people they put it as 18:05, is Parenting Tips with At 18:15, which is our next program, we'll be going on the program Consciousness. And today we've got another great and wonderful African role model for us, in the person of Miss Lydia Kohler. She's the MD of Aberdeen Fashion Week, marketing director, Edinburgh Fashion Festival, and creative director of Kemonto Fashions. There are some other things that she does as well. She'll be able to tell us more about that once we get on the program. But immediately after Consciousness, we'll be going on Yoruba referendum. Alagba, or Mr. Alagba Femi Odedeyi is ever ready to deal with ongoing discussions or topics in the community, especially regarding issues in Nigeria and the route which he and his group believed is the right way to lead the Yoruba to freedom. And they believe also that if Yoruba follow that path, it will also impact on the other tribes as well to enter into our own freedom as well. There's a special program today at 8, and that is special 16 days of action. You'll be hearing more about that at 8:30. Zainab Gist launch. We will actually be doing a replay of last week's session. And of course, the last program for the day will be coming from the group Hessler and Chips on Things Come Together. So stay on with me as I bring in our guest for today on consciousness, Miss Lydia Koller. Right, welcome to the program. Miss Lydia, are you hearing me?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Brother Samuel.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for coming on the program. And I believe that people have been waiting to see our beautiful sister and to hear about what you've been doing. I know that the ones that I've put on there are more things that you do, and we'll get to know them in the course of this interview. So, who is Miss Lydia Koller?
I am an African fashion designer and teacher from Kenya, actually. I live in Aberdeen, Scotland, mother of 3 boys. Yeah, that's me.
Okay, that's great. That's great. You stay in Aberdeen.
Yes, I do.
And I think that's is that a place where they call where the oil money is?
That's what they say. I don't know if there's oil anymore, to be honest, but yeah, it's the capital city of oil and gas in Europe.
Yeah. Thank you for that information. Now, coming back to yourself, I mean, you've been in Scotland for a while now. In the course of being around here, I mean, we'll see your some of your titles, which I believe is part of your professional resume. You've actually got involved in quite lots of things, and which I believe you are still doing. So the question here is, how was your journey? How did you get to where you are today in this area of business?
Right. I've been, when I was quite young, I started sketching dresses. I was particularly interested in wedding dresses. And that went on just sketching. And when I got to high school, I got to do stitching or tailoring class. And after that, went to university and then had the opportunity to come here and do my master's. And when I was here in the UK is when I actually thought I could sort of make this commercial, and that's when I started making my dresses. That was actually, I had the concept of doing that here. But we moved to Australia for a short while, and I started doing my fashion design in Australia the year 2008.
Okay, great. I mean, there are many people from the African community who've tried to start up things around here. And I believe that some of them will see you as a role model since you've been in that area, or yes, in that area. But then they used to say that most of the success story we see today, it must have involved lots of sacrifices. That is not just, yes, you just wake up and at the tap of your finger, you just get to where you are today. For the purpose of people that are watching us and might want to learn one thing or the other, what would you regard as the values that you that you had to bring up during that time that sustain you during those stages before you get to where you are today?
Well, thank you. That's a good question. It's not been easy. I can tell you that. First of all, I hope that I'm not going to sound bad here, but being an African, in the fashion industry, especially in Scotland, can get a lot of people feeling as if because you're not from here, you shouldn't be doing things. I've had to put sweat, blood, and pain and all that, more stress to get where I am today because I don't believe in giving up. I go on and do what I want to do. No matter what you feel or how you feel, I know that I'm good at what I do, and then I go on and do it.
Okay. So when we talk about resilience, can we talk about patience?
What?
And is this right? Some people believe that, I mean, it's easier for women to do business. Is that something you agree with?
I've never been a man, therefore I can't know. But no, it's not easy. I can tell you this. It's really difficult to get into business in these countries. But if you put your mind to it, as I said before, you can do it. I don't know how it happens for men, to be honest, how they do their business. But myself and some ladies that I've talked to, it's always really difficult. But then again, it depends on which industry you are in. Fashion industry has never been easy for anyone, let alone an African person. I can tell you when I started, especially Aberdeen Fashion Week.
Right.
Because I used to have a bridal shop before that. Then I started the Aberdeen Fashion Week. That was 2013. 2013.
Okay.
And when I started, I had people come to me, prominent Scottish people, tell me, because you're African, you shouldn't be doing this. Not African, actually, because you're Black. And then somebody else comes and tells me, you could leave it for a Scottish person who is younger. Somebody else came and told me, Aberdeen is not a fashion place. But I say to them, what I'm doing is mainly for the expatriate, because as we said before, oil and gas. So if you feel, and to be honest, the Scottish people love fashion. They love fashion so much. It's just a few people who felt then. But they have come to see that I'm not going to stop and I will continue doing this. And we are happy together now with whoever was feeling as if I couldn't have done it. And this is going back in the day. So right now, I don't think that anyone is going to be trying to make me stop what I'm doing because I do it so well.
Okay. So that's the place of quality now.
You can say that.
Even if they don't like your face, I mean, they will like your work.
Something like that.
Okay, Shares. Okay, you've mentioned briefly, but then I would actually want us to go right in there. Aberdeen Fashion Week, what is it about?
Aberdeen Fashion Week is a fashion trade show. It's a platform for so many designers to come from anywhere around the world. We've actually had designers come from Nigeria to Aberdeen Fashion Week. They come to showcase their clothes. We get buyers to come. The buyers get to choose the dresses they want either for their boutiques. And then we have fashionistas who also come on the day. If they like the dresses that are there, they can also buy that. So it's a trade show for fashion designers to get to sell their clothes to the public and to the buyers for their boutiques.
Okay. Before the end of the program, we will obviously get your details so that people that are interested could get in touch with you. But is the Edinburgh Fashion Festival, is it just like the duplication of the one you have at Aberdeen, or is completely different?
It's completely different.
Okay. So what is it?
While Fashion Week and Fashion Festival are not the same. Fashion Week is a trade show, but Fashion Festival, it's more like a celebration of designers, of models, of photographers, of buyers. They come together. we have fashion shows. Actually, it's the first time it's going to be. The company just got started not so long ago, just before COVID hit.
All right.
So we are just waiting to go on and do the first festival. So what fashion festival normally is celebration of the fashion industry. There will be fashion events, it's similar, but then again, we're not going to be having buyers to come and buy the clothes. They're just coming to see. Anyone can buy the clothes then, but it's predominantly people, celebrating fashion.
Okay, that's great. And
can I just add?
Yes, please.
So Edinburgh Fashion Festival will always be together or at the same time with the Edinburgh Film Festival, which is known all over the world. So it's going to be during that week. And what that means is that when people are celebrating films, UK or Scottish films or films from all over the world, we will also be celebrating fashion.
Okay, at the same time. I mean, that's a very good strategy. Now the Kemonto Fashions. So is this your brand?
Yes, it is.
I know all of them are your brand and where you have the Fashion Week, which involves others, and then obviously the festival as well, the Edinburgh, which also involve others. But when it comes to Kemonto Fashions, that is actually your own brand, right?
Yes, it is.
Yes, that's been on for how long?
Since 2008.
2008.
Yes.
Great. And you did mention that you started with a bridal shop. And but these days, do you do just any attire?
Good question. I still do wedding dresses.
Okay.
I also do, wedding party. And then I also do evening dresses. If kids are going for proms, I have their dresses. If people are going for Christmas party, for instance, I have their dresses. If they're going for a Kaylee, I have their dresses. And recently, during the pandemic, I've been making a new collection, and this is crochet dresses. So I get to crochet the dresses, and normally crochet is used for either hats or gloves and things like that, but I've turned it into dresses so that the customers can get to have a nice long dress, wedding dress of crochet, or just any other dress, skirt, blouse, etc.
Okay, thank you. Now, when we talk about the pandemic, I mean, the year 2020 has been quite challenging. You agree with me? I know you briefly mentioned something that you started off this year, but generally, how has this COVID-19, I mean, this era with the restrictions and some uncertainties, has it affected your business?
Well, in was it March? March we had the Fashion Week, and the next month, which is April, I was going to open my shop in Aberdeen. I'd secured a location, and I was because normally I sell from home, but because of the pandemic, I had to leave that space and continue working from home. So this has affected me in that, with the dresses that I do, people want to touch them. Because a wedding dress, when you buy it online, you don't know how it's going to fit. So people want to touch the dress, to feel it, to almost like bond with it. So because of the pandemic, I didn't get to open my shop. That's one. And two, really, there are no weddings going on. So generally, the sales are completely down. Yeah, I can tell you one thing, since the pandemic started, no wedding dresses have been bought.
Oh, yeah.
But that's okay, because right now the world is, we've never seen this since 1918. We were not there then.
Yeah, sure.
So we don't really know what is going to happen next. So for me, I'm just happy that people are keeping safe and not wanting to go and quickly get married, without knowing what's happening next.
Okay.
So I do sell other things. I make masks, so I've been selling my masks. I also, as I said, sorry?
Designer mask.
Well, I'm a fashion designer. It's mask.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. I know also with, every time that there are challenges, interestingly, it also opens up opportunities. So from your view, or I mean, you are in the business, when you are unable to do this particular thing, maybe that is when you think about, okay, I can actually do it this way also. Did you pick up any form of opportunities during these challenging times?
As I said, I've been making masks. Because we always do awards for people in the fashion, art, and media. All these people work together in the fashion industry, because without a photographer, we are not going to really have, photos from the fashion week. And then we need makeup artists. We need an entertainer to come and show us, maybe a trick, or maybe sing for us to entertain us. So we all work together. And because of that, the year 2017, I started doing awards for the creatives in these industries. And since the pandemic, I've decided to start a YouTube channel, of which I talk to designers, to actors, to models, anyone in that industry, for that matter.
Okay.
So we record interviews with them, and we put them on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Actually, that was going to be my next area. About your media, platform, because I've seen that you've been quite busy, but I've not been able to actually pick the area where you focus, which you've mentioned now, that you actually focus on, like the designers and co, to bring them on for people to know about them. And I think that's one of the opportunities as well that COVID has brought. When everybody's restricted at home, we have to find other ways to reach out to people. So that's quite great, and I hope that people are picking it up as well, and they could contact you if they want to get involved. Now let's go. Let's go to Kenya.
Yes.
And I will start by giving you a test. Are you ready?
Yes, always.
Okay. Do you go home often?
Before the pandemic, I used to go home either 2 or 3 times a year.
Okay,
but
great.
since the pandemic, I've not been.
Okay, so the question should be easy for you. So that's a pre-question. That's not actually my question, my main question. So my main question is, do you speak your local language?
I speak 2, yes.
2? Okay, which one?
I speak Swahili. Swahili is spoken around East Africa.
Okay, yes.
And I also speak Kisi, which is my local dialect. Okay,
so can you use Swahili to greet those people that are watching us, to welcome them and say thank you for watching us today? So go ahead.
Hamjambo nyote, asante kwa kukuja kuangalia hii mambo yangu. Tafadhali tumeomba muendelee kuangalia. Mungu awabariki.
Thank you very much. That's 100% mark. Right. In Kenya, you also have a charity work.
Yes.
Because I remember when I was speaking with you and you told me about what you do, I reminded you that I know that you've got a charity work in Kenya.
Yes.
So which area is this and what exactly do you do?
So how it started, there is quite a few kids who do not have parents and live on the street. And they normally, when they see you, they are so eager because probably they haven't eaten or they haven't, they have no shower, street kids. So I decided, my mom is a member of parliament or a local parliament. So myself and my mom decided to get kids who were on the streets to bring them to a home and give them education, give them food, give them clothing, shelter, and love. So that's what we did. That was 2018.
Okay.
Yes. So since then, we still keep the kids. We give them everything possible. It's not been easy, especially because of the pandemic, but we still continue looking after the children.
Okay. Which area of Kenya is this place?
As I said, I'm Kisii, so it's in Kisii. Well, it's in Nyamira. I'm Kisii, but Kisii has 3 counties, Kisii, Nyamira, and Gucha. So we take kids from all the 3. Cases are one person, but the counties have been divided for political reasons. But whichever kids that are on the street that we find that are in need, we take them to our home. Again, we have to follow up with procedure. You just don't go and pick kids and take them. So there is a procedure to take.
Okay, that's great. And for this work, how do you fund it? Do you get help from people in case of those people that might want to get in touch to help?
So how we do this, as I said, my mom is in parliament, in the local parliament. So she gets, predominantly it's me and my mom that support. And my dad has a small hospital. When the kids are sick, they go and be treated, because normally going to the general hospital can also be very hectic. So my dad also helps in that the kids are treated for free in a private hospital. How do we fund ourselves? We pay for everything ourselves, but because my mom is in the county government, all the other people who work with her sometimes bring maybe a sack of maize. In Kenya, we eat maize. It's like what you eat called fufu.
Simple food.
Yeah, but we eat maize powder, cooked the same way. So they might bring maize, or they might bring the maize powder. They might bring beans. They might bring potatoes, things like that. It's not going to be like financial, but they help us with food. So that helps.
Okay, that's great. So if people want to get in touch with you, how could they reach you?
I'm always on Facebook. My name is Lydia Cutler. I'm on Aberdeen Fashion Week. I'm on Kemunto Fashions. I'm always on Instagram. I'm everywhere. Nobody can miss me because I sell my clothes on Facebook Marketplace. So Facebook is like my office. So anyone looking for me, they'll know where to find me easily.
Okay, brilliant. Now, if we're talking about the African communities in Aberdeen, I mean, you've been there for a while. How has that community grown? And especially during this challenging time, what help is available for that community?
Wow, good question. I said I live in Aberdeen, but I really don't. I live outside Aberdeen. I live in a small village called Peter Kuta outside Aberdeen.
Okay.
Now, people don't go to church anymore. People used to go to church. So people really, where they meet now is mainly on social media, because you're not going to go and meet somewhere. We had SARS, and SARS, not SARS,
Yes.
and SARS get together. We went to a place called Castlegate. We stood there and, we supported. Personally, I was with my Kenyan flag supporting Nigeria.
Thank you.
That's the time I saw most of the people that I know. But because I live outside Aberdeen, I don't really get to go to Aberdeen unless for a reason. So I was happy to see my friends that I had not seen for a long time. I was so happy to see I know there's so many Africans here, but I was so happy to see a crowd of us, because normally you might see one person or two people. But it was amazing to see everyone, and also amazing to see that I wasn't the only non-Nigerian. I saw somebody from Botswana there. I saw someone from Uganda there. So it was really nice. It was like Africa united.
All right, great. Now bringing us back into your area, which is your professional area, either with the Aberdeen Fashion Week or the Edinburgh Fashion Festival. Do you see quite a good number of Africans getting involved in these events, either as participants or as designers? Do you see quite lots of Africans?
Good question. You see, because of what has happened lately, the pandemic, I don't know how it's going to be in terms of Africans getting involved, because Africans in the UK, yes, of course, they can if they want. As I said, I've had lots and lots of Africans, especially the Nigerian community, either from Nigeria or even from here, come and showcase. We've had African models also take part. Do I know what's going to happen next? Probably not, because at this time, nobody knows what's happening. They are saying there's a vaccine, but do we know if it's going to work? No, we don't know. We just have to wait and see what happens, take everything as it comes, happily, because if we become so sad, then we're just going to be depressed.
I do understand that. Yeah. And then coming around to community activities here, I know that you are very, very active when about your charity in Kenya, and obviously you are very, very active also when it comes to your area of business and fashion generally. If you are not doing this, what do you do? How do you use your pastimes and co?
As I said when we started before, I'm a teacher. I'm a high school teacher, or secondary school teacher, as they call it in Scotland. I do supply teaching. Therefore, I go from one school to another, either weekly or sometimes I can stay in a school for a term or things like that. But because of pandemic, and the reason why I'm a supply teacher is because I need time. Like during the fashion week, I need to take time off to do things. If I was full-time teacher in one school, it means then that I can't do my business. So, but right now, with the pandemic, obviously, supply teachers, like I think also care workers, nurses that work for agency. I work for the City Council, Aberdeen.
All right.
They also don't get to go to places because they don't want too many people coming to schools, because of the same. And they don't want me to go to one school today and then to go to another school tomorrow. It's not good for them. It's not good for me. But normally, I am a high school teacher.
Okay.
I teach English. I teach media studies. I've also been teaching philosophy in Scotland, religious education and philosophy.
Okay, I mean that's wonderful. Like, let's look at this other area about family. People are looking, oh, is she married? How many kids has she got? Oh
my gosh, that's so personal. I have 3 boys who are in college. One is finishing university from Robert Gordon next year. My 2 other boys are in college right now.
Okay.
I am not married, but I think that I'm happy like that. Yeah. Life is actually quite complicated and stressful. Who wants to get married? Yeah.
That is okay. What music do you listen to?
Nigerian music most of the time. And can I say something? I love Nigerian food.
Thank you. Is that the jollof rice or which one?
I love jollof rice. I love furiro. I love pondol yam. I love all of them. Egusi.
Wow.
All of them.
Okay. Wow, that's great. Thank you.
And you know, Kenyan food is not the same as Nigerian food. We don't put spices. Most of our food is actually boiled.
Okay.
So Nigerian food for me, because I lived in India, I went to high school in India. It means that it's because of the chili, the spice, it's just amazing. I think I was Nigerian in my last life.
In your last life before you come into
yeah, I think so.
Then you should be the African United.
I am.
Yeah. So okay, that's great. Let's see. I think some people are just dropping some questions for us. Just 1 minute. Okay, that's for Nico. In Lovu, I hope I mentioned that very well and say she's so lovely. So that's people are commending that. Thank you. Now moving on, we're running obviously towards the end of the year. Like we've all agreed, the year has been challenging. But just like you also mentioned that people have to keep moving, people have to keep hope alive. So on your part, what advice would you give people based on life experience that, okay, this life have been, this year has been quite so challenging, but we still need to keep on moving, both individual progression as well as community progression?
Right. That's a good question. If it depends on what's happening right now in the world, we need to remember God a bit more, because without him, we are nothing. We need to pray to God, thank God every day, morning when you wake up, because so many people have lost their lives. So we are not more special than them, but the fact that we are here, we should be thankful. Praise God, pray to God, ask, and just generally be careful in that we should keep safe and be our brother's keeper, especially Africans. If there is an African having issues or trouble, especially right now, we should get together and help each other, because we are so far away from home. The best thing to do really is just, it doesn't matter which country you come from, you're African, you have to be your brother's keeper.
Thank you very much. I mean, that's a good one. And I think that's one of the few things that we've always been looking at, that even if every other thing is okay, the fact that you don't have your support base here, your families are not here, unlike other people that have their maybe like 3, 4, 5 generations of their family here, and they've got roots. So, but for us, that support base is not there. And the only thing we could do for ourselves is just to keep supporting one another in order to, take us through these challenging times and for times to come. This question is more like general. I mean, everybody almost will talk about it one way or the other, that they've experienced it. We've got some news in the past, whether in the institutional, in the institutions or within the community or even privately. People talk about discrimination. You are here, and you said even where you live is just a little bit off Aberdeen. Where I'm suspecting where you may not have that many number of Africans or people that look like you.
Where I live, there's 3 or 4 of us, because it's a village.
So that means they only see few of you. So when we talk about issue of discrimination,
no, not here. Where I live, because most of the people here are from the oil and gas community, there is no discrimination, because they have been to Nigeria, they have been to, say, Angola and things like that. No discrimination where I live. But when I go to Aberdeen city itself, not good, not good. So this area, no problem. It's when I go out there, especially when I'm doing my, shows, or just sometimes even walking on the street, someone will tell you, go back to Africa. And I'm thinking, okay, I have a house in Africa. I don't come from a tree, so don't tell me to go back to Africa. And then they forget that in Africa, we have so many of Scottish people also in Africa. So I don't go telling them, go back to Scotland.
Okay, that's good. Now let's come round to another area that people love to talk about, and this is parenting, raising kids, especially African kids in Europe. So obviously you want to an extent, and when you look at having to train your kids, I know people will say African way or Europe way, but I think the most important thing is that parenting. Do you find parenting challenging when you look at African way and Europe way, and also for kids that you want them to know more about home? I mean, it's so great that you can speak 2 languages from your area, and being able to let your kids know about home and ensuring that they are connected, rather than some of the few things that we've seen where we have some kids that doesn't want to even identify with Africa, maybe because of what they are hearing. So when it comes to parenting and making the kids to know about home and that they are part and parcel of that home, have you been able to do this? Did you find it challenging?
Good question. No, there's no challenge at all whatsoever. No. I'm an African mother. I do it the African way. Right from just sitting there and sending a child to bring for me a glass of water. Why? Because they have to know that they have to do these things, African mothers, we are like Hitler, but it actually works well for it works well for us. We just have the rules. We just instill the rules, and our kids say, I've never seen anyone, I know a lot of Africans here, and I've never seen any African with a child who has issues. Never. I've been here for more than 20 years. I've met lots and lots of Africans. Everyone's children are great. That's because we instill the African, the way we were brought up, Yeah. No changes, no difference. Just because we are in another country, a child is a child, and they have to be shown how to grow up, the African way.
Okay, so I've got right here, that's from Oliroti. Proudly African parents, I'm solidly by your side. So that's a commendation.
Thank
and
you.
Of course, we have from Nico, this is a question. My question is, how can we get more Africans to be supportive and encouraging others to build stronger communities when it comes to programs like this one? Personally, I'm involved in few projects but I'm not supported by Africans, very small numbers of people. Thank you, Nico, for that. So bringing this to you, now you've been in business. We'll still refer to that because it's by experience. You've experienced this. And we've got Nico here that says he is doing something, but he hardly gets support from Africans. So the first question. Answer that. Yeah. Okay, I'll let you answer that first. Then I will bring in a follow-up question. So go on.
Right. The fact that most of us are here we really work hard for the money, right?
Yes.
So you find that maybe somebody is in a nursing home working 12 hours. Sometimes they can't help you that way. And the fact that we are so far away from home, this country especially is very expensive. I don't get support from my African, actually, yes, I do.
Okay.
I get support from Nigerians, not Kenyans. I don't know why. As I said, I must have been Nigerian in my past life. But I really, honestly, I don't feel bad that people don't come to support me because people are so busy, you know. People are busy trying to create their own empires. They are not going to come and help you create yours.
Yes, but then, like we did mention earlier, was that we need to also, because if we don't support ourselves, remember that even in this country, even the host community, people from the host community, they still get, is because they have support from people around them. That's why they move far. So maybe it's something where you may want to advise our people again about supporting each other. So maybe if it's coming from you, they will listen.
Okay, if they could, that could be really nice.
Okay, so let's go for it.
we need to support each other. It doesn't, as I said before, let's be our brother's keeper. But then when it comes to business, I'm telling you, I do my fashion weeks. I really wait eagerly to see even one Kenyan come. They don't, but I can understand they are busy making money. So they're not going to, take their time to come to me. I don't really, because I have those people who love me and come. If somebody wants to support you, they can. Yeah, if we can also try to help each other, support each other a bit more, that's also another good thing. But you can, as I said before, you can't force someone to do something. But if we can also try and, try and support each other, not even just in projects or anything, just saying, hi, how are you? How, even just a phone call. A Ugandan girl died in, was it Edinburgh or Glasgow? Early this year because
yes, we have from Glasgow.
She didn't have anyone, to talk to.
Okay.
So if we can even just a phone call is enough. We don't need too much. So that support itself. Again, I don't know why I keep referring to Nigerian. As a former Nigerian, we have a Nigerian women's group. In that group, we speak every day. People post their foods, what they are cooked for the day. I don't cook like that. So they are almost killing me with rage. Like, when will the pandemic be over? But the fact that we keep that unity, that togetherness.
Yes.
So they post the photos of their children doing stuff, that helps. So if people can do even that, that can be nice rather than be on everybody on your own.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Lydia Kola, for coming on the program today. Obviously, we'll continue to watch what you are doing, and we'll be happy to bring you up here from time to time.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Yes, those that are watching us will get the guest details in case you want to get in touch and get involved in what she's doing.
Aberdeen Fashion Week there, they won't forget.
If you type Aberdeen Fashion Week anywhere, it will bring up our name and our details. I think this is just a parting question. The facts, have you been to Nigeria?
Yes.
You've been to Nigeria, yeah. So that's
a friend of mine, Wobia, who is also a fashion designer, does fashion events in Nigeria, and she invited me to Port Harcourt to an event that she hosted. Oh, that was amazing. I loved everything, especially the fact that I was having Indomie for breakfast. For me, that was like great. No tea and bread. It's, amazing. Yeah. So I loved the Port Harcourt very much. I went via, I forget the name.
It's the
capital city.
Lagos or Abuja?
Abuja. I went via Abuja. I didn't leave the airport, but because I'm a fashion designer, I looked around to see the people. Oh gosh, those people, they know how to dress. It's like they are picked, selected to be there, I loved that. I just loved. I was in the airport for maybe 4 or 5 hours, but I saw fashion.
Okay. That's great. Nice. Thank you very much. So thank you very much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
With you soon, and our regards to your family.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks. Right. You're welcome. Listeners, thanks for joining us on this program. Remember, we still have programs going on, and the next right on is the Yoruba Referendum Committee. Do stay on with us. Ẹ káàbọ̀ sí orí ètò wa lónìí o, Yoruba Referendum Committee. We are right now on with Alàgbà Fẹ́mi Ọdẹ́dèyí. Ẹ má sọ wípé mo pè yín lórúkọ sà.
Orúkọ mi náà nìyẹn. Orúkọ mi Alàgbà yẹn ni ò kì í ṣe orúkọ mi, but orúkọ mi náà ni Fẹ́mi yẹn. Dédé náà ni.
Ẹ káàbọ̀ sí orí ètò wa. Ṣé àlàáfíà yín?
Adúpẹ́ o, ṣàlàáfíà ni gbogbo wa wà o. Àti ní ọ̀dọ̀ yín lọ́hùn, àti ọ̀rọ̀ lockdown, corona lockdown àti gbogbo ẹ̀. Ọlọ́run á pa gbogbo wa mọ́ o.
Àmín àṣẹ.
Ọlọ́run á pa wa mọ́. Ọlọ́run á dẹ̀ fún wa ní ìmọ̀ àtòye àti làákàyè láti tètè wádìí nǹkan tó fà á àti bí a ṣe lè borí ẹ̀ tí ayé àwọn èèyàn fi máa lè ní ìlọsíwájú sí.
Àmín àṣẹ. Olórin kan ní ọ̀dọ̀ wa ní ọ̀nà tí wọ́n bóyá bàbá wa Ebenezer Obey ni àbí King Sunny Adé, wọ́n ní ojúmọ́ kan ìlú kan. Ṣùgbọ́n ọ̀rọ̀ Nàìjíríà la fẹ́ sọ báyìí. Ó ti di ọ̀rọ̀ ojúmọ́ kan, ọ̀rọ̀ wàhálà kan pẹ̀lú àwọn tí ó ń ṣẹlẹ̀. Ìyẹn náà ni a sọ wípé lónìí o, kí a tún bá yín sọ̀rọ̀ lórí ẹ̀ ká lè wò pé àwọn nǹkan wo ni ẹ rí sí. Ní ẹnu ọjọ́ mẹ́ta yìí, bó tilẹ̀ jẹ́ pé wọ́n ti ń sọ tipẹ́tipẹ́ nípa ọ̀rọ̀ wípé ọ̀rọ̀ ààbòlú, ètò ààbòlú, ó mẹ́hẹ. Díẹ̀díẹ̀ ni à ń sọ tẹ́lẹ̀, ṣùgbọ́n ó dàbẹ́ ń pé ó ti wá di tí gbogbo ènìyàn tí wọ́n ti wá ń pariwo báyìí. Ní bí ọ̀sẹ̀ kan sẹ́yìn ó ní Sultan of Sokoto ni ó pariwo bọ́ síta wípé ẹ wá wàhálà wà o. Bí Sultan náà ti ń sọ títí ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ ni àwọn Northern Elders náà bóyá bí gúrùpù kan làwọn náà sọ pé kí president ní olórí ìlú ajagunfẹ̀yìntì Muhammadu Buhari pé kó tiẹ̀ kúrò ńbẹ̀ ni. Ṣùgbọ́n àwa wò ó pé in tí a fi lè yanjú ọ̀rọ̀ yìí nítorí pé Sultan of ti Sokoto òun sọ wípé ọ̀rọ̀ ààbòlú tí ó ti dojúrú báyìí pé ó ti pẹ́ tó ti ń ṣẹlẹ̀ wípé ó sì dàbí ẹni pé a dá sí àbí a fẹ́ dá sí. A sì ń bọ̀ láti wá sọ̀rọ̀ nípa àwọn ìròyìn ẹ̀sùn kékeré díẹ̀ tí Sultan náà àwọn akọ̀ròyìn tó wà ní àpò ọ̀dọ̀ wa. Ṣùgbọ́n ká kọ́kọ́ sọ lórí ọ̀rọ̀ ètò ìlú tí ètò ààbò ìlú tó dàbẹ̀ pé lójoojúmọ́ òun náà ni kíní ọ̀hún wọ́. Wọ́n ti sọ pé kí Muhammadu Buhari ó kúrò. Àwọn kan ti sọ pé irọ́ kó yọ gbogbo àwọn ọ̀gá ológun ni káàkiri gbogbo wọn pé kí gbogbo wọn ni kí wọ́n yọ kúrò. Ọ̀rọ̀ tí mo wá fẹ́ béèrè lọ́wọ́ yín ni wípé láti yanjú ọ̀rọ̀ yìí nítorí pé kì í ṣe North nìkan ò ní ìpèníjà ọ̀rọ̀ ààbò ìlú wa tó lọ lọ́wọ́, ó wà káàkiri ni. Ṣé ká ní kí olórí ìlú ó kúrò àbí ká ní kí gbogbo àwọn ọ̀gá ológun ó kúrò? Ṣé eléyìí lè mú ṣó lè yanjú ọ̀rọ̀ tó bẹ ńlẹ̀ yìí àbí tó wà lẹ́yìn ó ju tí pé ká kàn sọ pé kéèyàn tó kúrò lórí oyè lọ?
Ẹ ṣé gan. Ohun tó wà ńlẹ̀ yìí ó kọjá kẹ́nìkan kúrò lórí oyè àbí kí wọ́n yọ àwọn kan kúrò lórí oyè lọ. Lákọ̀ọ́kọ́ màá fẹ́ ká bẹ̀rẹ̀ wípé látòrí Sultan yẹn. Sultan Sokoto fúnra rẹ̀ ọ̀gá ológun ni kó tó di Sultan, retired colonel Nigerian Army ni kan tó fi ṣe Sultan. Púpọ̀ náà àwọn emir tó wà ní North, àwọn ọ̀gá ológun tó ti fẹ̀yìntì lẹ́yìn iṣẹ́ ni, àwọn general colonels gbogbo wọn náà ti wà nínú iṣẹ́ ológun yẹn tán dẹ̀ ti jẹ́ ọ̀gá gidi níbẹ̀ kó tó di pé wọ́n di emir. So tí wọ́n bá wá ń sọ nísìnyí pé ọ̀rọ̀ ààbò ìlú àti gbogbo ẹ̀ ó ní káwọn tún wò. Nígbà tí wọ́n wà níṣẹ́ ológun yẹn, àwọn ológun ló wà níjọba nígbà yẹn kó tó di pé wọ́n di emir. So wọ́n mọ ipa tí àwọn ológun kó nípa bí ìlú ṣe di bó ṣe dì yìí, bó ṣe dà nísìn. So tán bá wá ń sọ pé ó yẹ kí àtúnṣe wà, ibi tá a máa kọ́kọ́ lọ ní pé ṣe bí iṣẹ́ ológun gan fúnra rẹ̀ iṣẹ́ ààbò ìlú ló wà fún. Nǹkan tí wọ́n ń sọ fún wa ní pé iṣẹ́ ológun láti dáàbò bo ìlú ni. Wọ́n á tún wá sọ pé fún àwọn ọ̀tá tó bá ń bọ̀ láti ẹ̀yìn odi ni ológun wà fún. Ṣùgbọ́n lọ́dọ̀ tiwa àwọn ológun ti wà ń jọba fúngbà tipẹ́. Àwọn púpọ̀ náà àwọn emir yìí náà dẹ̀ ti wà nínú ìjọba pẹ̀lú wọn. So wọ́n ti wà nínú àwọn tó jọ ń ṣe ààbò ìlú nínú ìlú wa gan. Buhari gan fúnra rẹ̀ ti ṣe ọ̀gá ológun rí tó dẹ̀ ti ṣe olórí ìlú rí nígbà tó tiẹ̀ ṣì wà nínú ọ̀gá ológun káwọn ológun ẹgbẹ́ ẹ̀ náà kan tó yọ kúrò ńbẹ̀. So tá a bá wá sọ nísìnyí pé ẹ jẹ́ ká yọ Buhari kúrò ńbẹ̀ tí àwọn emir ń sọ wípé ẹ jẹ́ ká yọ Buhari kúrò ńbẹ̀ ká fi ẹlòmíì sí, ta ni wọ́n fẹ́ fi sí? Ìyẹn ni ìbéèrè àkọ́kọ́. Tán bá ní kán tẹ̀lé ìlànà òfin wọn, tán bá ní kí Buhari fìwé lẹ̀ kó fipò lẹ̀, ẹni tó ṣe igbákejì ẹ̀ pásítọ̀ vice president Yẹmí Ọ̀ṣínbàjò òun ni ó máa bọ́ síbẹ̀. Okay, ká wá sọ pé Yẹmí Ọ̀ṣínbàjò bọ́ síbẹ̀ ó di ọ̀gá pátápátá, gbogbo iṣẹ́ ológun, gbogbo nǹkan ológun tó ti wà ńlẹ̀ ni ó sì máa wà ńbẹ̀. Gbogbo nǹkan tí Buhari ń lò tó fi ń ṣe ó ṣiṣẹ́ kò ṣiṣẹ́ o, bọ̀ gbogbo nǹkan tó ń lò ló máa wà ńbẹ̀. Kẹ́dẹ̀ rántí ńgbà kan nígbà tí Buhari wà ní London, tí kinní kan ṣẹlẹ̀ ṣá, tí Yẹmí Ọ̀ṣínbàjò vice president ó ń láti yọ ọ̀gá iléeṣẹ́ jẹ́ DSS kọ́ ni, ó yọ kúrò nípò pé ó ṣe àṣemáṣe kan. Bó ṣe yọ kúrò nípò, bí Buhari ṣe padà dé, bọ́n ṣe dá padà nìyẹn sípò tí wọ́n ti yọ yẹn. So nǹkan tó wà ńbẹ̀ ni pé ọ̀rọ̀ yìí ò kì í ṣe bóyá Buhari wà ńbẹ̀ àbí Buhari ò sí ńbẹ̀, nítorí ìgbà tí kinní wà ńbẹ̀, Jonathan tó jẹ́ olórí ìlú ńgbà yẹn, àwọn kinní náà ń ṣẹlẹ̀, kò pọ̀ tó ti sin yìí o, ṣùgbọ́n wọ́n ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ńgbà yẹn, débi tó yẹ pé èyí tó jẹ́ olùdámọ̀ràn ẹ̀ nípa ààbò ìlú, Patrick Aziza ló dàbí nípa Aziza lórúkọ ẹ̀, ó ti kú nísìnyí. Òun gan sọ pé gbogbo àwọn ọlọ̀tẹ̀, àwọn Boko Haram, gbogbo wọn pé wọ́n wà nínú ìjọba nígbà yẹn, ó ń sọ nígbà yẹn. So tá a bá kó gbogbo ẹ̀ pọ̀, tá a bá ní òkè ó yọ àwọn tó jẹ́ ọ̀gágun, àwọn tó ń pè ní service chiefs, ó máa fi àwọn ẹlòmíì síbẹ̀. Àwọn ọmọ ológun àti iṣẹ́ ológun tí àwọn tó wà ńbẹ̀ nísìnyí ń lò làwọn náà máa lò. So nǹkan tí ò fi mú wọn ṣiṣẹ́ nísìnyí tí àwọn ọ̀gá tó wà ńbẹ̀ bá wà ńbẹ̀, kí ló máa fà á tó máa fún wọn ṣiṣẹ́ tán bá fi ẹlòmíì sí? Nígbà tó jẹ́ pé kì í ṣe pé yẹ́sà ní ológun ni wọ́n, tán bá ti sọ pé báyìí ni bẹ́ẹ̀ náà ni, ṣùgbọ́n kí ló wà ní agbárí wọn tán fi máa sọ pé báyìí ni? Nǹkan tó ń finú rò, nǹkan tó ń finú ṣe, ìyẹn ló máa ń fa irú ọmọ ogun wo ni wọ́n ní tí wọ́n á fi lè pa àṣẹ fún wọn. Then kẹtún wá wo ọ̀rọ̀ míì tó tún wà ńbẹ̀ pé nínú bọ́n ṣe ń fira wọn sípò nínú ológun yẹn, ọ̀gágun kan wà tó jẹ́ ọmọ Yorùbá tí ó jẹ́ pé tán bá yọ èyí tó wà ńbẹ̀ nísìnyí, Buratai tó wà ńbẹ̀ tó bá kúrò ńbẹ̀, òun ló yẹ kó bọ́ síbẹ̀. Wọ́n ti lọ fìyẹn pamọ́ sí ipò kan tí ò lórí tí ò nídìí kan. So gbogbo kinní yẹn wà ńbẹ̀ débi tó jẹ́ pé tá bá sọ pé ẹ yọ lágbájá, ẹ yọ tẹ̀mẹ̀dọ̀, ẹ yọ kinní kan, àwọn tó ń sọ pé kán yọwọ́ yẹn, wọ́n ti ní nǹkan lẹ̀ tí wọ́n fẹ́ fi dípò wọn. Nítorí pé tí ò bá jẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀ ni wọ́n á ti wò pé ẹ wá kinní yìí ò ń ṣe àwọn gbogbo rògbòdìyàn tó ń lọ ń lò, kì í ṣe pé bóyá Buratai wà ní ọ̀gá ológun àbí Buhari jẹ́ olórí Nàìjíríà. Ọ̀rọ̀ Nàìjíríà gan fúnra rẹ̀ bó ṣe wà, ibi tí wàhálà wà nìyẹn, ibi tí gbogbo kinní ti ń wá nìyẹn, pé tí kinní kan dẹ̀ wà nínú political science tán máa ń pè ní tán máa ń sọ pé àwọn tó máa ń ṣe rògbòdìyàn yẹn, wọ́n máa ń fẹ́ fi ipá mú ìjọba kó kúrò lórí oyè. Ipe tán bá fipá mú ìjọba kúrò lórí oyè, àwọn tó máa bọ́ síbẹ̀ á wá jẹ́ pé nǹkan tí wọ́n fẹ́ kán ṣe ni. Nísìnyí ta ló lágbára láti lé Buhari kúrò lórí oyè? Tá bá yọ àwọn tó ń ṣe rògbòdìyàn yẹn kúrò, tó ń pè ní security àti gbogbo ẹ̀, a tún sọ pé àwọn ológun ni wọ́n tún lágbára yẹn, wọ́n lè yọ wọn kúrò. Nínú àwọn méjèèjì pẹ̀lú agbára nísìnyí, tán bá dẹ̀ nìkan lọ dìbò, wọ́n ti ṣe ìbò tó jẹ́ pé ní òkè ọya lọ́hùn níbi táwọn Buhari ti wá lọ́hùn, wọ́n ti ka àwọn ìbò kan sílẹ̀ pé kò sí bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣe fẹ́ ṣe, ìbò tiwọn ló máa sọ ẹni tó máa borí, nítorí wọ́n ti sọ pé iye báyìí làwọn ní tó ń dìbò lọ́dọ̀ àwọn. So ẹ̀yin tẹ́ bá ń bọ̀, tẹ́ bá fẹ́ dìbò, ẹ̀ ń láti parapọ̀ mọ́ wọn ni. So wọ́n á ní agbára láti sọ nǹkan tó máa jáde nínú àtìlẹ́yìn àbájáde ìbò yẹn, wọ́n á lágbára láti sọ. So láàárín àwọn mẹ́tẹ̀ẹ̀ta yẹn, tá a bá wò ó pé àwọn tó ń da nǹkan rú, kì í ṣe pé wọ́n kàn ń dàrú lásán, just like bíi ti EndSARS yẹn ni. wọn ó wà organized, wọ́n mọ nǹkan tó ń ṣe. Kì í ṣe pé àwọn kan kàn déédéé jí irú àwọn tó náà lọ pa ní kinní yẹn ní ibì kan nínú ọ̀tán náà bẹ́ orí wọn tó dúdú wọn bí ẹran yẹn ní kinní yẹn. Tẹ́ bá ní Algeria ní North Africa in the 90s nígbà táwọn Islamic terrorists yẹn tó ń ṣe tiwọn ní Algeria, tẹ́ bá wò bí wọ́n ṣe ń pààyàn ń bẹ yẹn ńgbà yẹn, bọ́n ṣe pa wọ́n yìí, bọ́n ṣe lọ dúnbù rẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ náà ṣe ń dúnbù wọn ní Algeria ńgbà yẹn, tó jẹ́ pé wọ́n á mú wọn, wọ́n á kàn dúnbù wọn ni. So nǹkan tí wọ́n ń ṣe ń bí àti nǹkan tó ń ṣe ní Algeria níbi 20 ọdún sẹ́yìn àti gbogbo ẹ̀ kò yàtọ̀ síra wọn. Àwọn tó ń ṣe wọ́n ti kọ́ ẹ̀kọ́ láti ibi tán ti ń ṣe wá, wọ́n mọ nǹkan tó ń ṣe. So tán bá yege láti ti Buhari kúrò níjọba pẹ̀lú gbogbo tí àwọn sultan ṣe rántí tí mo sọ pé àwọn sultan gbogbo wọn ti wà nù ìjọba ológun tẹ́lẹ̀, wọ́n ti wà nù ológun tẹ́lẹ̀. So tán bá tì wọ́n kúrò níjọba, àwọn náà máa bọ́ síbẹ̀. So tán bá bọ́ síbẹ̀, gbogbo nǹkan tí nítorí pé wọ́n ti fi agbára bọ́ síbẹ̀, àwa tá jẹ́ ọmọ ìlú tá ní agbára láti ṣe nǹkan kan, wọ́n á wá lè ṣe nǹkan tí wọ́n fẹ́ ṣe tí ò ní sí tá ní lè dojú ìjà kọ wọ́n, nítorí wọ́n ti gba gbogbo nǹkan tán lè fi jà, wọ́n ti mú dání. So tán bá ń sọ bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn, ó ní nǹkan kan tán gbọ́kànlé tán fi ń sọ bẹ́ẹ̀. Now ìyẹn ò sọ pé Buhari ṣe nǹkan tó dáa bí kò ṣe, a máa padà sórí ìyẹn o. Mo kàn fẹ́ sọ wípé ká wo gbogbo ibi tí àwọn ọ̀rọ̀ yìí ti ń wá. Tó bá dẹ̀ jẹ́ pé àwọn ológun ló ń gbàjọba àti mọ gbogbo nǹkan tó lógun lè ṣe àti mọ nǹkan tó ti ṣe rí, kò sí tó máa ṣe tó máa yàtọ̀. Lẹ́yìn yìí pé ìtí mo sọ lẹ́ẹ̀kan yẹn pé mo ti gbàgbé orúkọ ọ̀gágun yẹn ní ìsìn, òun ló jẹ́ bí ẹni tó next sí Buratai, wọ́n kàn lọ fi pamọ́ síbì kan ni. Ẹni tó tún wá jẹ́ Yorùbá tó jẹ́ ọ̀gá ológun kan náà, wọ́n ti rọ̀ nípò sílẹ̀. Èyí tí Adéníyì àbí kinní kan lórúkọ tó pariwo síta pé àwọn ò ní nǹkan gùn já o, àwọn ò ní kinní kan wà. So ẹ tún wá rí níbẹ̀ yẹn pé bí wọ́n ṣe ń ṣe iṣẹ́ ìjọba ológun wọ́n ti ń wò pé táwọn bá tiẹ̀ lọ yọ eléyìí kúrò níbẹ̀, ta ló máa rọ́pò ẹ̀. So wọn ò fẹ́ kí nǹkan kan kó jẹ́ ìdíwọ́ fún wọn lórí nǹkan tí wọ́n fẹ́ ṣe nípasẹ̀ ológun yẹn. Ìyẹn ni ìkejì. Tá bá sọ ti ìbò wípé òkè ọ̀nà tí ọ̀gbẹ́ni fi máa kúrò ńbẹ̀ ni ká dìbò, wọ́n sọ pé òkè àwọn tó wá láti ṣe South Nigeria, àwọn náà máa produce, náà máa wá alága àti gbogbo tó sọ yẹn tí wọ́n ń ṣe gbogbo nǹkan tó ń ṣe. Ẹ wá rí i pé àwọn jókòó sí òkè ọ̀yà lọ́hùn wípé òkè àwa la wà bí, àwa la máa wá sọ fún yín ẹni tá a fẹ́. Nígbà tán bá tẹ́ bá dẹ̀ ẹ ti rí nínú mẹ́tẹ̀ẹ̀ta tí mo sọ yẹn, tó lógun ni o, tí pé kó kúrò ń bẹ̀ ni o, àti tó níbò ni o, ọwọ́ wọn ló ṣì wà. Tó dẹ̀ ń fa gbogbo ẹ̀ ni pé kí ni báwo ni Nàìjíríà ṣe jẹ́, báwo ni Nàìjíríà ṣe máa di orílẹ̀-èdè, báwo ni Nàìjíríà ṣe máa kúrò ní orílẹ̀ tí ò ní èdè tó di orílẹ̀ tó ní èdè. Ibi tí àwọn kìnìún yẹn ti wá nìyẹn, ibi tó dẹ̀ yẹ ká wò nìyẹn. So tán bá ń sọ gbogbo nǹkan tó ń sọ, ó ṣe ẹ̀kẹ́ tún wá wù ú, ẹ ti sọ pé ẹ máa padà wá síbi àwọn oníròyìn àbí kìnìún kan yẹn. Ó ṣe gbẹ́gbà tí àwọn sultan bá sọ̀rọ̀ la máa ń ròyìn pé wàhálà ti dé ojú kóńkó. Ọ̀rọ̀ tá ti ń sọ látijọ́ yìí, táwọn sultan gan ò sọ pé a ti ń sọ bẹ́ẹ̀, bọ̀tán wá ń ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ ni pé ìgbà táwọn sọ yẹn, ìgbà yẹn ló di kókó. So ibi tọ́rọ̀ oníròyìn tá a bá débẹ̀ yẹn á sọ gbogbo yẹn.
òun náà ni a máa mú báyìí wípé Sultan sọ wọ́n ní àwa tí a wà ní southern Nigeria or southern part of Nigeria wípé àwa la control media bí ròyìn ṣe ń jáde. Ẹ̀sùn tí southern wa fi kan southern Nigeria náà ni wípé gbogbo tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ní north nípa insecurity gbogbo wàhálà àti nǹkan kan pé àwọn akọ̀ròyìn southern Nigeria wọn ò gbé gbogbo ẹ̀ jáde tán wípé nítorí pé wọn ò gbé gbogbo ẹ̀ jáde tán làwọn èèyàn ṣe mọ̀ wípé wàhálà ń bẹ ní ọ̀dọ̀ àwọn lọ́hùn. Ìyẹn wá ni mo wá fẹ́ kí ẹ bá wa jà wípé nípa lóòótọ́ a mọ̀ pé tá a bá sọ̀rọ̀ nípa ìròyìn àti ìwé ìròyìn àbí nǹkan kan apọ̀dọ̀ wa ló pọ̀ jù sí jù. Tá a bá wà àwọn bísẹ̀sì tó jẹ́ pé that area ni wọ́n wà ló pọ̀ jù sí jù. Ṣùgbọ́n wípé àmọ̀mọ̀ máa jẹ́ kí àwọn èèyàn gbọ́ nípa ìròyìn ohun tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ní òkè ọ̀yà àti gbogbo wàhálà tó wà ń bẹ̀. Ṣé Sultan ṣé wọ́n rí eléyìí sọ?
Kò rí sọ o, Sultan ò rí sọ torí gbogbo àwọn òótọ́ ni pé àwọn ìwé ìròyìn wọ́n pọ̀ ní ìsàlẹ̀ ní south ju ní north lọ, ṣùgbọ́n kì í ṣe pé tìtorí pé wọ́n fẹ́ kó rí bẹ́ẹ̀. Kíní láti bẹ̀rẹ̀ láti ìgbà tá a ti ń bá wọn elédè Gẹ̀ẹ́sì tá a ti ń bá wọn fa ọ̀rọ̀ òmìnira òṣòmìnira ló ti wà. Ìlú Abẹ́òkúta ni ìwé ìròyìn ti kọ́kọ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀. Ìwé ìròyìn gan tiẹ̀ ní táìtùlù pépà yẹn nígbà yẹn. So a ti ní ìwé ìròyìn lọ́dọ̀ wa tipẹ́tipẹ́ láti ìgbà ológun ni. A dẹ̀ lè sọ pé tìtorí pé a wá jẹ́ Nàìjíríà ká wá ní òkè o a fẹ́ gbé kúrò ní ibi tó wà ká gbé lọ sí ìgbà tí wọ́n ń dá ní Nàìjíríà sílẹ̀ ní the 60s. Wọ́n dá lẹ̀ Gaskia àbí kinní kan ni wọ́n ń pè ńgbà yẹn. Wọ́n dá lẹ̀ ńgbà yẹn pé òkè kò síwèé ìròyìn tó péjú tó péye ní ọ̀dọ̀ wọn, so káwọn náà ní tiwọn tán fi ń ṣe kinní àdẹ̀mọ nǹkan tí wọ́n fi ṣe ńgbà yẹn. Ìgbà tó yá táwọn ológun tá à ń sọ yìí tán gbàjọba, even nígbà yẹn àwọn Ọbásanjọ́ ni wọ́n fi ṣe olórí ńgbà yẹn. Àwọn ìwé ìròyìn wa tó jẹ́ pé ó ń fún àwọn èèyàn ní ìmọ̀, ó ń fún wọn ní ìròyìn, ó ń fún wọn ní gbogbo ẹ̀, ìjọba àpapọ̀ wọ́n gbà lọ́wọ́ wa. Wọ́n wá fi àwọn tó wá látòkè ọ̀yà fi ṣe olórí wọn. Irú Daily Times ìgbà yẹn, ẹni tó bá mọ Daily Times, Alhaji Babatunde Joseph ló ní Daily Times ńgbà yẹn, tó dẹ̀ di ìwé ìròyìn ńlá gan, tó jẹ́ pé tẹ́ bá ti ní Kakawa Street ẹ ti mọ nǹkan tẹ́ ń sọ lÉkòó ní ìgbà yẹn. Òun ni ìwé ìròyìn tó gbójú tó dẹ̀ péye. Gbogbo àwọn èmi ni Gbọ́lábọ̀ Ògúnsanwó, Ààrẹ Oyèyè Bọ́lá, Ṣẹ́gun Ọ̀ṣọ́bà, gbogbo àwọn bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn, Peter Ajayi, ibi tí wọ́n ti dìde tán ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ gbogbo kíni wọn nìyẹn. So nígbà táwọn ológun gbà, wọ́n wá lọ gbé Aliko Muhammed náà fi ṣe olórí ibẹ̀. So gbogbo àwọn tó jẹ́ èèyàn jàǹkànjàǹkàn tó jẹ́ oníròyìn tó péye, Aliko Muhammed yọ gbogbo wọn kúrò ńbẹ̀. Wọ́n ṣàdá gbogbo ẹ̀rú bọ́n ṣe fẹ́ dàrú. Nǹkan tó jẹ́ kí n mú eléyìí jáde ni pé nígbà yẹn tẹ́ bá mọ̀ pé ìwé ìròyìn kò wọ́pọ̀ lọ́dọ̀ yín, ṣé àtúnṣe tó wà lórí ẹ̀ ní kẹ́ wá bà ti tó wà nísàlẹ̀ jẹ́, àbí kẹ́ mọ̀ bẹ́ ṣe máa dá àwọn ètò péye sílẹ̀ ní ọ̀dọ̀ yín lọ́hùn. So wọn ò ṣe yẹn, níṣe náà bà gbogbo ìta ń ṣe ní Daily Times jẹ́. Just like wọ́n ṣe bà ilé ẹ̀kọ́ jẹ́, wípé gbogbo àwọn yunifásitì tó níláárí ńgbà yẹn wọ́n bà gbogbo ẹ̀ jẹ́. Àwọn èèyàn wa ò dúró, wọ́n lọ ń dá iléèwé lẹ̀, ibi tí nursery, private secondary school ti dìde nìyẹn táwọn èèyàn sọ pé tẹ́ bá fẹ́ bà gbogbo iléèwé wa jẹ́ o ẹ jẹ́ ká máa dá tiwa lẹ̀ o wọ́n dẹ̀ dá tiwọn lẹ̀ wọn nǹkan kan náà ló ṣẹlẹ̀ pẹ̀lú ọ̀rọ̀ ìwé ìròyìn pé ìgbà tí wọ́n ti bà Daily Times jẹ́ tó ti di kínní olúkálùkù tó ní agbára láti ṣe wọ́n bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí dá ìwé ìròyìn tí wọ́n lẹ̀ ìgbà tó dẹ̀ jẹ́ pé láàrin wa a ti wà nígbà gbogbo tá à ń bá àwọn elédè Gẹ̀ẹ́sì fa ọ̀rọ̀ òmìnira yẹn oríṣiríṣi ìwé ìròyìn ló wà Azikiwe ní West African Pilot Awólọ́wọ̀ ní Nigerian Tribune àwọn Action Group ní Daily Service oríṣiríṣi ló pọ̀ Akíntọ́lá ní Ìmọ̀lẹ̀ Òwúrọ̀ bí Morning Star so gbogbo ẹ̀ la ní nítorí pé a mọ̀ pé ọ̀nà tí a lè gbà fi mọ nǹkan tá à ń rò àti nǹkan tá a fẹ́ ṣe tá a dẹ̀ lè fi mú ìmọ̀ àti ìṣeránṣẹ́ sí ẹnìkejì wa ní ká kọ sínú ìwé nǹkan tó fa gbogbo kinní yẹn ni so nígbà tó wá délẹ̀ nísìn tí gbogbo ẹ̀ wá dé báyìí tí Sultan wa ń sọ pé àgbẹ̀ kinní kan jáde ibi tí mo ti ní kò rí ọ̀rọ̀ sọ nìyẹn nítorí pé ní ìgbà tí nǹkan bá ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ní ọ̀dọ̀ wọn lọ inú àwọn ìròyìn wa ló ti máa ń kọ́kọ́ jáde ìgbà tí wọ́n gbé Ṣùgàbá ní 1980 kan ni tán lọ tí wọ́n jù sẹ́yìn odi Nàìjíríà wọ́n ní kì í ṣọmọ Nàìjíríà ìwé ìròyìn tó wà ní Èkó ló kọ́kọ́ gbé jáde nǹkan tó yọ ọ̀gbẹ́ni yẹn kúrò nù kìíní sọ Ṣùgàbá yẹn Borno State nígbà yẹn so gbogbo eléyìí tá à ń sọ yìí gbogbo èmi ni Boko Haram ni èmi ni wọ́n pè wọ́n ní harassment terrorist o wọ́n pè wọ́n ní bandits wọ́n pè wọ́n ní kidnapping kò sínú ìwé ìròyìn tí ò kì í sí ní ọ̀dọ̀ wa kò sí ìwé ìròyìn tí ò kì í gbé tí àwọn bá wà ní òkè ọya lọ́hùn tó bá ń sọ pé àwọn ò rí kéèyàn kàn fi ọ̀wọ̀ fún ipò tó wà mi ò ní pè lórúkọ tó yẹ kí n pè nítorí kò sí nǹkan tí ó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ tí wọn kì í kọ jáde nǹkan tó ń ṣe wọ́n ni pé nǹkan tí àwọn fẹ́ ká máa kọ jáde kọ́ là ń kọ jáde nǹkan tí ó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ làwọn ń kọ jáde ọ̀tọ̀ ní nǹkan táwọn fẹ́ ká máa kọ jáde ibi tí wàhálà yẹn ti máa ń wá nìyẹn so kò lẹ́tọ̀ọ́ fún láti sọ pé àwọn kan jókòó wọn kọ kínní bí mo ṣe sọ lẹ́ẹ̀kan ọ̀gágun ní Sultan colonel ní Sultan nínú Nigerian Army kó tó di Sultan ó dẹ̀ pera ẹ̀ ní ọ̀gá gbogbo àwọn Fúlàní tó wà ní West Africa bó ṣe pera ẹ̀ nìyẹn o kó ń lọ̀gá gbogbo àwọn Fúlàní tó wà ní West Africa ó dẹ̀ jẹ́ colonel ológun ó dẹ̀ ṣe so o lè sọ pé o mọ nǹkan tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ní àárín àwọn èèyàn kó wá máa fẹ́ sọ pé àwọn tó wà ní South ni wọn kọ jáde irọ́ ńlá bàbá ńlá arọ́ ni gbogbo kìíní yẹn so tó bá mọ̀ pé àwọn ní wàhálà àwọn ní nǹkan tó yẹ káwọn yẹ̀ wò ó yẹ kán gbé kán yẹ̀ wò láàrin ara wọn kì í ṣe pé kó máa wá sọ pé àwa ni à ń sọ̀rọ̀ ń pa ẹ̀ nítorí à ń sọ òun ni ò fẹ́ gbọ́.
ẹ ṣeun gan sà ká sáré lọ síbi orí ọ̀rọ̀ a ti ń sọ tẹ́lẹ̀ náà a sì máa sọ lọ náà ni títí tí nǹkan fi yanjú ọ̀rọ̀ oní ó ṣe restructuring kò ṣe restructuring táwọn kan sọ pé ọ̀nà tí a lè gbà ní méjìlá máa mú ẹ jẹ́ kí n kọ́kọ́ mú títò ní constitutional amendment a wá padà bá títí oní restructuring tí tó jẹ́ constitutional amendment tí àwọn èèyàn sọ pé tá bá tẹ̀lé tún constitution wa kọ àbí tá bá lè ṣe ó yẹ kó yanjú gbogbo aáwọ̀ àti wàhálà tó wà ní àárín wa gẹ́gẹ́ bí ará Nàìjíríà àti àwọn wàhálà tó wà pẹ̀lú Nàìjíríà gangan ṣùgbọ́n ní ọ̀sẹ̀ tí ó kọjá lọ yìí ìkan lára àwọn olórí aṣòfin ìyẹn ọmọ Agége òun wá sọ̀rọ̀ wípé kí èèyàn kankan kó má ronú wípé àwọn lè fún Nàìjíríà ní constitution tuntun o pé kò sí tó jọ o wípé in tí wọ́n lè rí ó ní àwọn ìfà ó pè ní piecemeal amendment pé àwọn nǹkan kéékèèké láti ìyẹn ó fìdí ẹ̀ múlẹ̀ wípé bá a ṣe ń pariwo tó wípé constitution tí wọ́n fún wa ní 1999 tí wọ́n sọ pàwọ̀ èèyàn kan lákọ́ à ń sọ pé àwa kọ́ la kọ́ àwọn ológun ni wọ́n kọ́ fún wa wípé tí Nàìjíríà bá dẹ̀ fẹ́ níyànjú kò yẹ kí constitution yìí òun kọ́ ló yẹ ká wá lò àwọn èèyàn ti ń pariwo tẹ́lẹ̀ pé ẹ jẹ́ ká lo National Assembly láti fi láti fi ṣe kínní ṣùgbọ́n pẹ̀lú ohun tí ọmọ Agége sọ àṣà lè sọ pé kò mọ ohun tó ń sọ pẹ̀lú ohun tí ó sọ yìí kí ni ẹ̀yin lẹ́rí sọ sí ohun tó sọ yìí nípa títún ètò Nàìjíríà ṣe ní ọ̀nà tí ó máa mú ìlọsíwájú wá.
Ẹ ṣé gan ọ̀rọ̀ tó sọ yẹn first of all ọmọ Agége ó ní olùdarí ìgbìmọ̀ tí wọ́n gbé lẹ̀ ní National Assembly láti ṣe àtúnṣe sí constitution tí wọ́n ń lò so ó mọ nǹkan tó ń sọ kì í ṣe pé kò mọ nǹkan tó ń sọ nǹkan tó wá sọ yẹn ó wá dá lé lórí pé constitution yẹn gan fúnra rẹ̀ kò bá ọ̀rọ̀ àwọn ọmọ Nàìjíríà lọ rárá ẹ jẹ́ ká fi ilẹ̀ pé bóyá wọ́n mọ̀ ń pa ẹ̀ bóyá ọmọ Nàìjíríà mọ̀ ń pa ẹ̀ bí wọ́n mọ̀ ń pa ẹ̀ wọ́n mọ̀ ń pa ẹ̀ o but mímọ̀ wọn mọ̀ ń pa ẹ̀ yẹn kò tiẹ̀ tún wá balọ̀ nítorí tẹ́ ẹ bá wò ó nínú constitution yẹn wọn ò dárúkọ ẹnìkankan ipe ó jẹ́ ọmọ Nàìjíríà irú èmi báyìí ní ìsìn mi sí nínú constitution yẹn torí Yorùbá ni mí constitution yẹn ò dẹ̀ recognize Yorùbá ipe èèyàn ní Yorùbá ó kàn sọ pé ọmọ Nàìjíríà ni ta lọmọ Nàìjíríà kò sọ so ọ̀rọ̀ constitution yẹn ò bá wa wí nǹkan tí constitution yẹn ṣe ní wàhálà tó ní nìyẹn pé àwọn tó kọ ológun náà ni wọ́n dẹ̀ ní àwọn ọ̀mọ̀wé kan tó ń bá wọn fọwọ́ sí wọ́n rí wa gẹ́gẹ́ bí èèyàn ẹlẹ́ran ara wọn rí wa bí èèyàn wọ́n kàn rí wa pé òkè àwọn kan ń gbé bí ẹ jẹ́ ká ṣe báyìí fún ẹ jẹ́ ká ṣe báyìí ẹ jẹ́ ká ṣe báyìí ẹ jẹ́ ká ṣe báyìí wọ́n dẹ̀ gbé lẹ̀ nǹkan tí constitution wọn ò ṣe lórí tí ò nídìí nìyẹn nǹkan tó ṣe jẹ́ pé bọ́n ṣe kọ constitution yẹn lẹ̀ ẹ rí i pé gbogbo àwọn tó ń lò ó bó jẹ́ òṣèlú ni wọ́n o bó jẹ́ aṣòfin ni wọ́n o bó dẹ̀ jẹ́ amòfin ni wọ́n o gbogbo nǹkan tó bá ń ṣe ó máa ń lòdì sí tó wà nínú constitution yẹn ni wọ́n kàn máa ń wọ́n fẹ́ fèdè Gẹ̀ẹ́sì dá gbogbo ẹ̀rú mọ́ wa lójú ni nítorí pé constitution tó jẹ́ àbá òfin tó sóyàn pọ̀ tí ò dẹ̀ sọ pé èèyàn ló jẹ́ èèyàn báyìí ló jẹ́ kì í ṣe nǹkan tó ṣe kinní fún ibi tí ọmọ Agége tún ti wá sọ ọ̀rọ̀ tó sọ yẹn lè tún wá dáa nítorí pé a lè sọ pé ó sọ̀rọ̀ òtítọ́ bóyá ó mọ̀ọ́mọ̀ sọ ní o bóyá ó jábọ́ lẹ́nu ẹ̀ ní o ṣùgbọ́n ọ̀rọ̀ òtítọ́ ló sọ wípé àwọn kan fẹ́ máa mú àwọn nǹkan kéékèèké wọ́n fẹ́ máa mú ṣe ni ìdí tó dẹ̀ ṣe sọ bẹ́ẹ̀ ni àwa ti ń sọ látijọ́ yìí wípé constitution yìí kì í ṣe fún àwọn èèyàn wa bí mo ṣe sọ lẹ́ẹ̀kan wọn ò dárúkọ pé Yorùbá wà ní ibi tó ń pè Nàìjíríà lẹ́nu wọn ò dárúkọ ẹ̀ ń bẹ̀ wọ́n lè dárúkọ àwọn ẹlòmíì o but èmi ò rí Yorùbá ń bẹ̀ pé àwọn kan wà ní ibi tá a pè ní Nàìjíríà yìí o tí wọ́n jẹ́ Yorùbá o tán jẹ́ ọmọ ìbílẹ̀ ẹ̀bẹ̀ o tán dẹ̀ jẹ́ Yorùbá o kò sí ń bẹ̀ mi ì mọ̀ bóyá àwọn tó kù wà ń bẹ̀ o wọn ò sí ń bẹ̀ náà mo mọ̀ ẹ́ mo kàn án so nǹkan tí a wá ń sọ ni pé òun tètè sọ jáde ní ìsìn ó dẹ̀ confam nǹkan tá a ti ń sọ ni wípé tá a bá la fẹ́ ní constitution àwọn tó jẹ́ ọmọ orílẹ̀-èdè ibẹ̀ ni wọ́n láti ṣe kì í ṣe nǹkan tí àwọn ológun tó gbé lẹ̀ quickly àwọn ológun tó ń dálẹ̀ nígbà táwọn òyìnbó dá Nigerian Army sílẹ̀ wọn ò dá sílẹ̀ láti dáàbò bo àwọn ọmọ èèyàn Nàìjíríà wọ́n dá sílẹ̀ láti wá jọba lórí ọmọ Nàìjíríà ni ìgbà tí wọ́n bẹ̀rẹ̀ Èkó ni wọ́n ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ wọ́n dẹ̀ pè ní Royal Hausa Constabulary ipe àwọn ológun Hausa náà kó wá sẹ́kọ̀ọ́ tán fi bẹ̀rẹ̀ Nigerian Army so wọn ò dá Nigerian Army lẹ̀ pé kán dáàbò bo àwọn ọmọ tó wà Nàìjíríà wọ́n dálẹ̀ láti fi wá ṣe ìjọba lórí wa ni gbogbo ẹ̀ ló wá transform tó wá di n tá à ń pè ní Nigerian Army lẹ́nu so àwọn tó wà nù army yẹn tí wọn ò ní làákàyè láti sọ pé ẹni báyìí làwọn jẹ́ nǹkan báyìí làwọn ń ṣe wọn ò lè gbé ètò ààbò ìlú sílẹ̀ tó jẹ́ pé constitution yẹn wọn ò lè gbé lẹ̀ kó máa ran ọmọ ìlú lọ́wọ́ nǹkan tó máa ran àwọn lọ́wọ́ pẹ̀lú iṣẹ́ ìlànà tí wọ́n dá wọn lẹ̀ fún ni wọ́n ń ṣe nǹkan tó fi ṣe constitution yẹn nìyẹn pé àti pín Nàìjíríà sí báyìí àti pín Nàìjíríà sí báyìí ẹni báyìí ló máa ṣe báyìí ẹni báyìí ló máa ṣe báyìí ẹni báyìí ló máa ṣe báyìí nígbà tẹ́ bá wá ṣe gbogbo yẹn tán ẹ wá máa wá mú irú tí ọmọ Agége sọ yẹn àwọn nǹkan pẹ́pẹ́pẹ́ yẹn ẹ wá sọ pé ó yá afẹ́ ilé àfẹ́ ilé àfẹ́ ilé àfẹ́ ilé gbogbo yẹn nǹkan tó máa ń fà á tí rògbòdìyàn fi máa ń wà nìyẹn ní 1999 ó jókòó sí àwọn kan ní north wọ́n jókòó síbẹ̀ wọ́n ní àwọn ń ṣe sharia yẹn ò sínú constitution wọn wọ́n láwọn ń ṣe sharia wọ́n dẹ̀ fi wọ́n lẹ̀ wọ́n mú jẹ ẹ̀yin wá fẹ́ sọ National Assembly wá fẹ́ sọ nísìnyí pé tán bá fẹ́ ṣe àtúnṣe kéékèèké tí wọ́n ṣe yẹn ó tún wá lọ sí ọ̀dọ̀ àwọn tó ń ṣe sharia yẹn nìkan fọwọ́ sí nǹkan tí àwa tí a ṣe sharia nǹkan tá a fẹ́ báwo ni irú ẹ̀ ṣe kò possible so nǹkan tí à ń sọ ni pé àwọn ti rò àwọn ológun àtàwọn tó ń bá wọn ṣe wọ́n ti rò pé bọ́n ṣe Nàìjíríà bí Nàìjíríà dẹ̀ ṣe wà tẹ́lẹ̀ kọ́ gbogbo wa la mọ̀ yẹn a mọ̀ pé bá a ṣe rí títí di 1960 bẹ́ẹ̀ kọ́ la rí between 1960 àti time yìí so kì í ṣe pé májíìkì kan là ń ṣe bí Nàìjíríà àwọn ti ń sọ pé bí Nàìjíríà ṣe wà lílé wọ́n fi ẹ̀tẹ̀ sílẹ̀ wọ́n fẹ́ máa palàpalàpà so ẹ̀tẹ̀ yẹn dẹ̀ máa bàjẹ́ sí lọ ni so gbogbo tí ọmọ Agége ń sọ yẹn bí mo ṣe sọ òótọ́ ọ̀rọ̀ ló sọ inú wa dẹ̀ dùn pé ó sòótọ́ ọ̀rọ̀ so nígbà tó ti wá sòótọ́ ọ̀rọ̀ yẹn ẹ̀tọ́ ti wá ní ìsìn ni láti wá sọ pé ó ṣe gan fún nǹkan tó sọ yẹn àwọn èèyàn tá a jẹ́ ọmọ tá a ní èdè tiwa tá a lórílẹ̀-èdè tiwa ẹ jẹ́ ká jókòó ká wá sọ bá a ṣe fẹ́ ṣe ìgbé ayé wa sí kì í ṣe ní táwọn bá fẹ́ ṣe a lè sọ pé òkè a fẹ́ kí ìlú má tòrò kò sẹ́ni tó ń wá kí gbogbo ẹ̀ dàrú àbí so ẹ sì máa ṣe nǹkan tẹ̀ ń ṣe lọ ṣùgbọ́n bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣe ń ṣe lọ yẹn àwa náà á ṣe tiwa táwa bá ti ṣe tiwa tán tiwa ló máa borí tiyín n tó máa dí wa lọ́wọ́ ni táwa ò bá ti lè ṣe tiwa ìjọ tá a bá ti gbé tiwa lẹ̀ báyìí ó di dandan kó borí nǹkan tẹ̀yin bá ń ṣe so kò ní sí táwọn olóde Gẹ̀ẹ́sì pè ní anarchy ìjọba sì máa lọ bó ṣe ń lọ o ṣùgbọ́n bíjọba ṣe ń lọ bó ṣe ń lọ àwa yanjú ara wa tá a bá dẹ̀ ti yanjú ara wa tán ìjọba ti ń parí nìyẹn ibi tí tá a bá wá connect mọ́ tí Adéṣọ̀tàn ń sọ lẹ́ẹ̀kan yẹn ibi tí àṣeyọrí ti máa wá nìyẹn wípé ókè o ṣé Buhari ń lọ ni tàbí kí Buhari máa lọ service chief ń lọ kinní kan ṣe kinní kan nítorí àwa ti yanjú ara wa àwa Yorùbá dẹ̀ ti gbé kinní kan jáde tipẹ́ tá a pè ní draft Yorùbá constitution
bẹ́ẹ̀ni
àti ní draft Yorùbá constitution yẹn tí ó jẹ́ pé ibi ìlànà ní fáwa Yorùbá pé bá a ṣe fẹ́ ṣe ní Nàìjíríà lélẹ̀ bá a ṣe fẹ́ ṣe nínú ẹ̀ láti sọ pé àwọn ìjọba àwọn ológun ti wá tó bá wà nílẹ̀ Yorùbá wọ́n láti jẹ́ ọmọ Yorùbá olórí wọn dẹ̀ láti jẹ́ Yorùbá ẹni tó máa ṣe ọ̀gágun tó ń pè ní GOC nísìnyí wọ́n láti jẹ́ Yorùbá a dẹ̀ sọ sínú ẹ̀ parliamentary system láfẹ́ àfẹ́kẹ́nìkan kan máa káàkiri pé òun fẹ́ dìbò fún gbogbo àgbáyé lọ jẹ́ káwọn aráàlú ẹ ìletò ẹ kán dìbò fún ẹ tó o bá ti gbà yẹn kò sí wàhálà ńbẹ̀ dẹ̀ kò sí gbogbo wípé à ń sáré lọ sábùjá lọ gba owó kan àbí lọ gba tọrọ kọ́bọ̀ kan tá a fẹ́ ná kò dẹ̀ sí pé bá a ṣe fẹ́ ṣe ilé ẹ̀kọ́ tiwa nǹkan táwa rí àṣẹ̀kọ́ tá a bá ní àfẹ́kédè wa parẹ́ èdè wa ń láti wà nù èdè ẹ̀kọ́ wa tá a fi ń ṣe ẹ̀kọ́ wa òun la gbogbo bó ṣe ń ṣe ní gbogbo àgbáyé nìyẹn so ìyẹn òun ṣe kínní so gbogbo yẹn láti kọ́lẹ̀ tá a pè ní draft Yorùbá constitution so tá a bá ṣe ibi tí ó wà connected mọ́rọ̀ referendum yẹn náà so tá a bá ṣe gbogbo ẹ̀ wọ́n tá a bá ti gbé kalẹ̀ a kàn sọ fún ọmọ Agége ní pé ó ṣe gan o ìlọsíwájú a máa dé fún ẹ o ṣùgbọ́n nǹkan tí àwa fẹ́ lélẹ̀ òun náà dẹ̀ ti fẹnu ara ẹ̀ sọ wípé nǹkan táwọn èèyàn tán bá fọwọ́ sí àwọn ò lẹ́tọ̀ọ́ láti yí padà àwọn ò tiẹ̀ lè ṣe nǹkan kan pa ẹ̀ so ní ìsìn wọ́n ti wá bẹ́ẹ̀ ni pé wọ́n ti wá jù sí wa ni wípé ókè o ẹ̀yin èèyàn nǹkan tẹ́ bá fẹ́ ẹ lọ ṣe wá ọwọ́ wa kọ́ ló wà mọ́ ọwọ́ wọn kọ́ ló wà mọ́ ọwọ́ àwọn èèyàn ló wà nísìn.
ẹ ṣeun Oliroti wọ́n kọ kọ́mẹ́ǹtì sí bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn wípé ó yẹ kí pé ní gbogbo ìlú ó ní wọ́n ti ń ṣe àtúnṣe àbí àtúnkọ sí constitution pé ó tẹ̀ yàyàn lẹ́nu wípé ọmọ Agége tó jẹ́ pé ibi tóun ti wá ó wà lára àwọn ibi tí wọ́n fọwọ́ gbá sẹ́yìn pé irú ẹ̀gàn ló yẹ kó máa jà pé ó yẹ kí kíní yóò yí padà òun ó yẹ kó tún máa sọ wípé kíní yóò ṣe ṣe ṣùgbọ́n gẹ́gẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀ ni ṣàlàyé ó dà ń pé bí wọ́n ṣe gbé sílẹ̀ ó ní ó jẹ́ kó dà ń pé ó fẹ́ nira wípé èèyàn kò wọlé bọ́ọ̀bẹ̀ kó kàn sọ pé òun yí òfin padà sí eléyìí.
sí eléyìí.
àwọn ènìyàn bóyá wọn láti ní tí wọ́n bá sọ tí wọ́n dẹ̀ rí àwọn tó pọ̀ tí ó pé tí wọ́n bá sọ nídìí tí wọ́n wá gbé wá wípé ní tí gbogbo àwọn èèyàn sọ ni yóò àwọn á tó lè ṣiṣẹ́ lórí ẹ̀.
ní ìyẹn gan ìyẹn ni iṣẹ́ tó máa ṣe lórí ẹ̀ ò tiẹ̀ pọ̀ nítorí pé nǹkan tí ó dẹ̀ ń sọ náà nìyẹn ó lè máa la gbogbo ẹnu tán ó kọ́kọ́ ṣùyàn lórí tí àwọn èèyàn bá ti sọ pé nǹkan tá a fẹ́ lélẹ̀ tẹ̀mọ̀ àkàndé máa sọ fún wọn ní pé nǹkan tá a fẹ́ lélẹ̀ yìí ó bá dẹ̀ sì fẹ́ ṣe nì tí wọ́n ní kán sọ pé àwọn fọwọ́ sí wọn lè sọ wípé àwọn ò fọwọ́ sí wọn dẹ̀ lè sọ pé àwọn fẹ́ yọ kinní kan kúrò ńbẹ̀ ìyẹn mo fi sọ̀rọ̀ anarchy lẹ́ẹ̀kan yẹn pé gbogbo ìta ń sọ mí ẹjọ́ ẹ gbà mí ní kinní pé kí mi mọ Yorùbá anarchy mo mọ̀ pé ní Yorùbá náà but ẹ ṣáà gbà mí láyè kí n pè ní èdè Gẹ̀ẹ́sì yẹn wípé ṣe mọ̀ pé tá a bá ní àfẹ́jọba mọ́ nísìn ẹ jẹ́ ká lọ máa ṣe kinní gbogbo ẹ máa dàrú ni olúkálùkù á máa ṣe nǹkan tó wù ní so kò ní sí yẹn ń bẹ̀ so ẹ̀yin tẹ́ wà ní National Assembly ẹ máa ṣe nǹkan tẹ́ ń ṣe lọ àníkẹ́ má ṣe ṣùgbọ́n àwa tá a jẹ́ èèyàn tá a jẹ́ ọmọ orílẹ̀-èdè àwa náà máa ṣe tiwa táwa bá ti wá ṣe tiwa tán tá a ti fọwọ́ sí nínú referendum tá à ń sọ yẹn tá a ti fọwọ́ sí tá a ti ṣe gbogbo ẹ̀ tá a ti ní bá a ṣe fẹ́ gbégbé sí ayé wa lélẹ̀ a máa sọ fún wọn ní National Assembly ní pé ókè o a ti ṣe nǹkan tẹ́ ó yẹ ká ṣe o tiyín ní kẹ́ ẹ fọwọ́ sí pé ó dà bẹ́ẹ̀ wọn ò lẹ́tọ̀ọ́ láti sọ pé kò dà bẹ́ẹ̀ wọn ò dẹ̀ lẹ́tọ̀ọ́ láti sọ fún wa pé ká gbé lọ sí ibòmíì kán lọ yẹ̀ wò tiwa ní pé a ti ṣe bá a dẹ̀ ṣe fẹ́ ni a dẹ̀ ti dìbò lórí ẹ̀ bá a ṣe fẹ́ gbé lọ nìyẹn kán dẹ̀ gbà bẹ́ẹ̀ tó bá dẹ̀ àwọn tán dẹ̀ wà National Assembly tó bá jẹ́ pé wọ́n sì fẹ́ máa ṣiṣẹ́ wọn lọ tán bá ti lè máa sanwó ara wọn kán máa ṣe lọ tán bá ti lè máa sponsor ara wọn kán dẹ̀ máa náwó wọn síbẹ̀ gbogbo òfin tán bá dẹ̀ ṣe ń bẹ̀ tí ò bá ti ní kàn wá ìyẹn ò kàn wá mọ́ so nǹkan tí a kàn ń sọ nìyẹn so tó bá jẹ́ pé nǹkan tó sọ yẹn ó lè ṣẹmọ̀ pé àwọn olóṣèlú ó ní bọ́n ṣe máa tún sọ tiwọn náà gbogbo lè mọ̀ọ́mọ̀ sọ wípé ẹ̀yin èèyàn ẹ lọ ṣe tiyín wá ìyẹn mo ṣe ń sọ pé báwọn olóyìnbó ṣe máa ń sọ pé wọ́n ló throw gauntlet ó ti jù sí wa ní ìsinyìí pé nǹkan táwa fẹ́ o àwọn ò lè ṣe okay táwọn ò bá lè ṣe nǹkan táwa fẹ́ ta ló wá lè ṣe ju àwa náà lọ.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni.
So ọwọ́ wa ló wà nísìnyí ká lọ ṣe ká dẹ̀ jẹ́ kán mọ̀ pé a ti ṣe wọn ò dẹ̀ lẹ́tọ̀ọ́ láti sọ pé kò ṣeé ṣe.
Okay. Ẹ ṣeun gan sir. Káwọn mú wá sí ọ̀rọ̀ ó ṣe restructuring kò ṣe restructuring. Ní ọ̀sẹ̀ tá lò kọjá iná ó náà ní fídíò kan ló bọ́ sí orí fọ́nrán tí ó jẹ́ wípé Pastor Túndé Bákàrè wọ́n bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní sọ nípa ọ̀rọ̀ pé restructuring gan ni along federal lines to the respect the federal character wípé ìyẹn ni àwọn gbàgbọ́ wípé ó máa mú ìlọsíwájú bá abala kọ̀ọ̀kan ní orílẹ̀-èdè Nàìjíríà. Wọ́n tọ́ka sí pyramid àwọn north ìgbà yẹn tí àwọn ẹni táwọn Haúsá fi ń ṣe. Wọ́n tọ́ka sí ohun tí a fi kòkó ṣe ní ọ̀dọ̀ wa ń bí. Ní ilẹ̀ àwọn Ìgbò lọ́nà wọ́n tọ́ka sí ohun tí wọ́n lo epo pupa láti fi ṣe ní ayé ìgbà yẹn. Wọ́n wá mú ẹnu bọ̀rọ̀ kan wọ́n ní nítorí pé bí ọdún mélòó sẹ́yìn wọ́n wá sí ọ̀dọ̀ wa níbí ní Scotland láti wá ṣe ìpàdé àwọn ìpàdé gbọ̀ngàn tí wọ́n ń ṣe káàkiri. Ní ọjọ́ náà lọ́hùn nítorí mo wà ń bẹ̀ mo rí tí àwọn èèyàn wọ́n fi kò wọ́n lójú pé ẹ̀yin tẹ́ ẹ̀ ń sọ pé Nàìjíríà rí bákan bákan ṣùgbọ́n ẹ̀yin náà lẹ sọ fáwọn èèyàn pé ọkùnrin ni kí wọ́n dìbò fún pé Buhari ni ó máa ṣe tó ṣe máa ṣe dáadáa pé ó ṣe wá dé nísìn tí ẹ wá ń pariwo ṣùgbọ́n ká fi ìyẹn sí apá kan. Àwọn náà wá sọ wípé lẹ́yìn ìgbà tí Buhari débẹ̀ wípé lóòrèkóòrè ni àwọn sọ fún President Muhammadu Buhari wípé ọ̀rọ̀ restructuring yìí ó di dandan kí a ṣe tó bá jẹ́ pé a fẹ́ kí Nàìjíríà kó ní lọ síwájú. Wọ́n sì ní tí olórí oko sọ náà ni pé everybody kàn pariwo náà ni gbogbo àti ẹ̀ mọ̀ ètò ń sọ báyìí ni àwọn wá rán létí pé tó rántí ní 2011 nígbà tí àwọn jọ fẹ́ ṣe ipò ààrẹ tí wọ́n jẹ́ igbákejì Buhari nígbà náà wípé ìwé táwọn mọ̀ kọ táwọn kọ bẹ́ẹ̀ pé n tá ṣe nìyí o pé àwọn gbé lọ àwọn sì fi hàn pé bóò ni ó sì sọ pé òun tó ń jẹ́ restructuring pé àwọn wo ni àwọn tí wọ́n ń pariwo wípé àwa gan fúnra wa that is àwọn àti Buhari ni wọ́n jọ fẹnu sí wípé n tó yẹ ká ṣe ní tí Nàìjíríà ó fi lọ dáadáa. Ọ̀rọ̀ yẹn wá ni mo wá ní kí n mú wá wípé kí ẹ̀tún bá fi ojú wò wípé ní 2011 tí wọ́n bá gbà wípé ẹ jẹ́ ká ṣe ìlú ní ọ̀nà tó fi jẹ́ pé abala kọ̀ọ̀kan wọ́n á lè ṣe nǹkan wọn bí wọ́n ṣe fẹ́ ṣe tí ó máa tùbàtùṣẹ́ fún wọn tó sì jẹ́ pé bí ìlọsíwájú bá ṣe ń bá wọn yóò máa ran àwọn yòókù náà. 2011 nìyẹn o wọ́n jọ fi ẹnu kò wípé n tí a ní láti ṣe nìyí. Ní 2015 nígbà tí APC tí wọ́n máa ṣe campaign tí wọ́n ṣe àti manifesto restructuring yẹn ló wà ní number 1 torí mi ní kọ́pì ìkíní wọn lọ́wọ́ wípé along federal line ó ṣe nǹkan kan kú o. Nígbà tí 2015 àwa wà ní 2020 lónìí president bóyá ká sọ pé láti ti bóyá ti 2011 ni o àbá ti 2015 ni o ó ṣe wá di pé president wá sọ pé àwọn èèyàn sọ ohun ò tiẹ̀ mọ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ ni mo ti ń sọ. Mo fẹ́ kí ẹ wá bá wa mú ọ̀rọ̀ yẹn papọ̀ pẹ̀lú àwọn ohun tí ẹ ti ń sọ tẹ́lẹ̀ wípé àwọn bí wọ́n ṣe máa sọ pé ọ̀nà tó pọ̀ ló wọjà. Gbogbo ọ̀nà táwọn èèyàn sọ yìí àti èyí tí wọ́n ti dánwò tí wọ́n ti sọ fún wa pé àyìn nǹkan báyìí la ṣe tá a bá dẹ̀ ti dìbò tán wọ́n máa kọ ẹ̀yìn sí wa. tí a bá padà ní irú àwọn ọ̀nà yìí tá a fi wọ 2023 láti dìbò, ṣé kò ní jẹ́ pé ẹ̀yin apẹ̀rẹ̀ òun là ń yín àgbàdo sí?
Òótọ́ ni ọ̀rọ̀ yẹn ó pọ̀ díẹ̀, so màá mú ní ìkọ̀ọ̀kan ni. Bó ṣe pọ̀ yẹn náà ló tún jára wọn, ó jára wọn, ó pọ̀ ó tún jára wọn. Lákọ̀ọ́kọ́ ní ṣé 2009 ni àbí mi ò rántí, ìgbà táwọn Pronaco, àwọn group kan wà tó ń jẹ́ Pronaco tí àwọn Wọlé Ṣóyínká àti gbogbo wọn wọ́n ṣe conference kan lÉkòó tí wọ́n náà ṣe constitution àbí kinní kan. Ìjọ tí wọ́n parí ẹ̀, ìjọ tán máa parí conference yẹn, Buhari lọ síbẹ̀, ó yọjú síbẹ̀, kò sọ̀rọ̀, kò sọ nǹkan kan, ó kàn yọjú síbẹ̀, ó wo ilẹ̀, ó dẹ̀ ṣe kinní, ó dẹ̀ padà, ó dẹ̀ lọ. Ohun tó jẹ́ kí n mú yẹn jáde ni pé èní kọ́ ni Buhari ti ń fi ìwà ẹ̀ hàn wípé nǹkan tó bá máa jẹ́ kí àwọn èèyàn wa ní ìsàlẹ̀ bí kan gba tiẹ̀, èní kọ́ ló ti ń ṣe yẹn kó tó di 2011 ti Pastor Bakare àti ti APC yẹn lákọ̀ọ́kọ́. Ẹlẹ́ẹ̀kejì, ó dùn mí pé nínú fídíò yẹn èmi náà ti wò, Pastor Bakare ò sọ, wọ́n sọ pé ìpínlẹ̀ kankan àbí kinní kan wípé kólúkálùkù fọwọ́ mú tiẹ̀. Ṣé mọ̀, Pastor Bakare ti sọ̀rọ̀ oríṣiríṣi ọ̀rọ̀ lórí ọ̀rọ̀ Yorùbá àti ọ̀rọ̀ restructuring. Ìgbà kan ni Pastor Bakare sọ pé kò sí tó ń jẹ́ Yorùbá, wípé ìgbà táwọn òyìnbó dé ni a ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ bẹ̀rẹ̀ ọ̀rọ̀ Yorùbá, tó jẹ́ pé ọ̀rọ̀ tó lòdì sí ìtàn Yorùbá pátápátá ni. Nígbà tó bá ti ń sọrú nǹkan bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn, ní àkọọ́lẹ̀ ní kinní yìí ó kì í ṣe pé wọ́n ní o, ó sọ síta, wọ́n dẹ̀ so wípé Ìjẹ̀ṣà, Ìjẹ̀bú ni wá, àríra wa sí Yorùbá kinní kan, gbogbo ẹ̀ ó ṣáà sọ gbogbo ẹ̀. Just like àwọn ní láti ibi tí Buhari ti wá, ẹnìkan wà ńbẹ̀, ó ti kú nísìnyí, tán pè ní Bala Usman, ọmọ Emir Katsina ni, ó ti ṣe historian ní Ahmadu Bello University. So ó ní gbogbo ẹ̀, wọ́n ṣáà ní gbogbo wọn tán kóra wọn jọ ńbẹ̀ yẹn. Irú ìtàn táwọn náà ń sọ nìyẹn, pé kò sí tó ń jẹ́ Yorùbá. Ìgbà táwọn òyìnbó dé náà kó wa jọ, òun tiẹ̀ tún sọ tiẹ̀ débi tó jẹ́ pé ó ní epo tó wà ní Niger Delta yìí pé àtọ̀dọ̀ wọn ló ti ṣàn lọ síbẹ̀, kẹ́bà mọ ibi tí gbogbo kinní ti ń bẹ̀rẹ̀. So nígbà tí àwọn yẹn ń sọ yẹn, tí Pastor Bakare náà ń sọ the same thing níbí, ó wá ní ó kọ ìwé kan, ó wá gbé fún ẹni tó wá láti bẹ̀, báwo ló ṣe fẹ́ ṣe? Ká tiẹ̀ gbàgbé pé wọ́n jọ jẹ́ Fúlàní, wọ́n jọ jẹ́ gbogbo ẹ̀. Katsina ni Bala Usman, ọmọ Emir Katsina ni, Fúlàní prince ni. Buhari Daura ló ti wá, ọmọ Daura, àdẹ̀mọ bọ́n ṣe gbé gẹ̀gẹ̀gẹ̀ tán promote ẹ̀ ní army tó di nǹkan tó dì. Ìwọ dẹ̀ ti sọ pé àwa Yorùbá sí until ìgbà táwọn òyìnbó dé, which is nǹkan táwọn Fúlàní historians ń sọ. Ẹ wá ní ẹ kọ̀wé, ẹ lọ gbé fún. Báwo ló ṣe fẹ́, kò lè ọkàn máa wò yín ìyẹn bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn. Ẹnìkan kí ló rú, Abba Kyari tó jẹ́ chief of staff ẹ̀ tó kú níjọ́sí yẹn. Tony Momo ó ti ṣe alákòóso information under Buhari, òun ni alága pátì Buhari sí CPC kó tó di pé wọ́n darapọ̀ mọ́ ECN tán di APC. Òun náà sọ ńgbà yẹn pé Abba Kyari kọ ìwé kan jáde tó pè ní, àtàwọn intellectuals kan ní North, tí wọ́n pè ní the Nigeria Project. Ó ní àwọn làwọn fún Buhari ní pépà yẹn tán pè ní the Nigeria Project. Ó ní Buhari dẹ̀ ka pépà yẹn, ó dẹ̀ máàkẹ̀, ó dẹ̀ sọ pé àwọn nǹkan táwọn máa ṣe, àwọn nǹkan táwọn máa ṣe. Gbogbo nǹkan tí Buhari ń ṣe lénìí is based on that Nigeria Project paper. So nǹkan tí mo fẹ́ fàyọ ńbẹ̀ ni pé akọ̀wé fún ẹnìkan ó yàtọ̀ sí kẹ́ ẹ sọ fún ẹni yẹn pé nǹkan tá à ń ṣe lélẹ̀. Nígbà tí number one ẹ ti sọ pé ẹ kì í ṣe Yorùbá until ìgbà táwọn Yorùbá dé táwọn òyìnbó dé. Òun náà ń tó àwọn náà ń sọ lọ́dọ̀ àwọn nìyẹn. Ẹ wá kọ̀wé ẹ gbélé lọ́wọ́, ẹ wá rò pé a ṣe nǹkan tẹ́yin fẹ́ ṣe. Ẹ ti ṣìnà ń bẹ yẹn. Irú àwọn ọ̀nà tí ò wọjà nìyẹn. Ipe nǹkan tó yẹ kẹ́ ẹ ṣe ni pé tẹ́ bá mọ̀ pé ẹ fẹ́ gba òmìnira ara yín àbí ẹ fẹ́ dá dúró, ẹ organize ara yín. Ìtẹ́ ẹ ṣe yẹn lẹ máa wá gbé síwájú ẹ pé bá a ṣe fẹ́ lélẹ̀. Kò ní lè lòdì sẹ́yìn ẹ̀. Ṣùgbọ́n tó bá now àwọn tó kọ Nigeria project ṣe mọ̀ pé ó níbi táwọn náà ti ń bọ̀. Gbogbo àyẹ́mí àwọn gbogbo wọn náà wà lẹ́yìn wọn, wọ́n mọ bọ́n ṣe ń ṣe nǹkan ara wọn láàrin ara wọn yẹn. Wọ́n dẹ̀ gbélé lọ́wọ́ pé lọ ṣe nǹkan báyìí. So nǹkan táwọn fẹ́ ṣe náà kọ sínú ìwé. Kì í ṣe pé nǹkan tí wọ́n rò ìkó yẹ kó ṣe. Ìyàtọ̀ wà ní méjèèjì. Àwọn Bákàrè ń gbé fún Buhari pé nǹkan tí a rò ìkó yẹ kó ṣe lélẹ̀. Àwọn Abba Kyari sọ fún yín pé nǹkan tí a fẹ́ ṣe lélẹ̀. Ìyẹn wọn dẹ̀ ni. So nǹkan ìyẹn bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn, ìyẹn náà lọ bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn. Náà nígbà tó wá di 2015 tí àwọn kí lorúkọ ẹ̀, àwọn APC tán tún ṣe tiwọn, tán ṣe gbogbo ẹ̀, tán dá gbogbo ẹ̀ pọ̀. Wọ́n tún wá yí mọ́, wọ́n tún lọ ní kí El-Rufai kó set up committee kan, ó set up committee yẹn. Àwọn náà tún ṣe gbogbo ẹ̀ àríbi tó yọjú sí. The same thing náà láṣẹ ń padà sí. Wípé à ń sọ fún Buhari pé n tó dẹ̀ fà táwọn ACN nígbà tí wọ́n lọ form alliance pẹ̀lú Buhari nìyẹn pé àwọn náà wọ́n fẹsẹ̀ kọ́ ńbẹ̀ yẹn wípé ẹ lọ darapọ̀ mọ́ ẹgbẹ́ Buhari ẹ tí ẹ fààyè sílẹ̀ fúnra yín láti kúrò ńbẹ̀. So ìgbà tí àwọn Awólọ́wọ̀ ṣe tí wọ́n gbà yẹn, ìgbà tí wọ́n ní káwólọ́wọ̀ má ṣe president PPP àbí PPA, ìgbà Awólọ́wọ̀ yarí fún ẹ pé òun gbà àfi kóun ṣe lé toró ti mọ orú èèyàn tán jẹ́. So nígbà tẹ́ wá ṣe gbogbo ẹ̀, tẹ́ wá kó gbogbo ẹ̀jọ́, tẹ́ wá gbé gbogbo ẹ̀ lé lọ́wọ́ pẹ̀lú Nigeria project, kí lẹ expect kó jáde ńbẹ̀. So ibi tí ọ̀rọ̀ wà nìyẹn wípé Buhari kọ́ ni ohun tá a máa kọ fún Buhari kọ́ ni ọ̀rọ̀ tó wà ńlẹ̀. Nǹkan tá a máa ṣe láàrin ara wa tá a dẹ̀ máa ṣe láṣeyọrí, ibi tọ́nà wà nìyẹn. So gbogbo ọ̀nà kan ló wọjà àfi tó wá dé pọ́jà kan náà kan là ń lọ. But nǹkan tí a sọ ni pé ọ̀nà tí wọ́n ti gbà yẹn kò lọ sọ́jà. Ọ̀nà tó lọ sọ́jà ni ọ̀nà tá a fi máa jókòó, ibi tọ́rọ̀ referendum àti Yorùbá constitution àti gbogbo ẹ̀ ti wọlé nìyẹn pé nǹkan tí àwa Yorùbá fẹ́ nílé a dẹ̀ ti decide láàrin ara wa, a dẹ̀ ti ṣe láàrin ara wa. Àwọn Buhari ò ní choice. Ṣùgbọ́n tá a bá ní ẹ jẹ́ ká lọ gbé fún kó wò ó bóyá ronú lórí ẹ̀, kò lè ronú lórí ẹ̀ nítorí kò dẹ̀ pé ibi tó ti wá láti ronú lórí ẹ̀. A dẹ̀ ti máa ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ nípa àgọ̀ débi tó jẹ́ pé gbogbo ohun tó yẹ ká ṣe fúnra wa àwa ń gbé síta bí ẹni àwọn tó nìkan lọ máa háyà masinari kan máa ṣe kínní nísìn àti gbogbo ẹ̀.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni.
So sorry pé time.
Ẹ ṣeun gan bá a ṣe ń sọ ọ̀rọ̀ pọ̀ nínú ìwé kọ́bọ̀. A máa rí yín bá. Ẹ̀yin èèyàn wa, alàgbà Fẹ́mi Ọdẹ́dèyí, àwọn náà ni a ti ń bá sọ̀rọ̀ láti bí ìṣẹ́jú mélòó kan sẹ́yìn, àti Yorùbá Referendum Committee òní wọ́n ti wá. N tí àwọn sọ ni wípé ọ̀rọ̀ yóò fa agídí o, kò fa ìjà, kò fa ìtàjẹ̀ sílẹ̀, pàápàá ó tẹ̀lé má fa ìwọ́de gan, wípé ẹ jẹ́ kí a ṣe ìbò láàrin ara wa, bóyá kí Yorùbá kí wọn ó dìbò pé kí làwọn ń fẹ́. Púpọ̀ nínú wa ẹlòmíà sọ restructuring, ẹlòmíà sọ 2023, wípé ok àti gbogbo ẹ̀ Yorùbá Referendum Committee ò tiẹ̀ sọ wípé eléyìí ní kẹ́ mú, ṣùgbọ́n n tí Yorùbá Referendum Committee ń sọ ni pé ẹ jẹ́ ká dìbò láàrin ara wa pé nínú gbogbo àwọn ọ̀nà tẹ́ là sílẹ̀ ọ̀hún èwo ni gbogbo wa fẹ́ fọwọ́ mú. Nígbà tí a bá wá dìbò ọ̀hún tá a rí n tí gbogbo wa fọwọ́ mú pé n tá a fẹ́ nìyí, wípé ìyẹn máa dàbí agbára fún wa, bóyá ìjọba àpapọ̀ la fẹ́ bá sọ̀rọ̀ ní o àbí bóyá àwọn ìjọba àgbáyé bá jẹ́ pé wọ́n fà débẹ̀ yẹn débi pé a fẹ́ lọ mọ́ sọ fún wọn wípé ẹ wá in táwa ń fẹ́ ni gbogbo àwa tá a sì wà ní agbègbè tí Yorùbá wà gbogbo wa náà ni a sì ti fọwọ́ sí wípé ìyẹn ni ò ní fa ìjà àti wàhálà láàrin wa tí kò sì ní di pé bóyá sójà ń kó bọ́n síta láti máa fi lé àwọn èèyàn káàkiri. Ẹ ṣeun púpọ̀, a ó máa rí yín bá.
Ẹ ṣé gan.
Ọ̀sẹ̀ méjì ó ní alàgbà Fẹ́mi Ọdẹ́dèyí ni wọ́n máa ń bá wa pàdé. Lẹ́yìn títẹ̀ tá a ṣe lónìí níbi ọ̀sẹ̀ méjì sí wọn ó tún padà wá sí orí ètò. Gẹ́gẹ́ bí mo ṣe sọ, ojúmọ́ kan ìlú kan ni.
Ìlú kan.
Ìgbà tí wọ́n bá fi máa dé ọ̀rọ̀ àtúntì pọ̀lẹ̀, ọ̀rọ̀ tí ẹ̀ pọ̀lẹ̀ gan báyìí. Ẹ̀ẹ̀kan ni. Ẹ ṣeun, a máa rí yín bá o.
Ẹ ṣé gan o, ẹ ṣé gan o. Ọlọ́run á wà pẹ̀lú gbogbo wa o.
Àmì àṣẹ o. Ẹ ṣeun.
Yes, sir.
Thank you and welcome to another section of the program. You must have been hearing about the 16 days of action. It is not just in the United Kingdom, but now internationally. Today, we'll be having Wura Ogun all the way from Edinburgh here. She will tell us more about herself, but she's been involved in this for a while. And she will be leading us on the 16 days of action and some of the pertinent questions that people have posted to us to ask about these activities. Ms. Wura Ogun, you are welcome to the program.
Oh, good evening. Sorry, I keep saying good afternoon. Good evening. Yeah.
You are most welcome. Thanks for joining us on this program.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Days of action. What is this about?
The 16 days of the 16 days. Well, it's called the Global 16 Days Campaign for gender violence against women and girl child. And well, it kind of started at the back of. It started in 1991, so that was at the back of the feminist movement, like we all know, because obviously the late 70s and the 80s, there was a big shake-up in the West. And obviously anything that impacts in the West does trickle down to other parts of the world. So late 80s, there was a lot of movement, early 80s, late 80s, there was a lot of feminist movement around, well, across Europe, across the Western countries. And one of the main focus around that was looking at inequality that existed between the male and the female. And there was a lot of questioning around women being more empowered. Of course, in the middle of women being empowered, we looked at the right to work. We looked at maternity, unpaid care. There was a lot of things that had to do with female generally. So you're looking at women, well, female who obviously are childbearing age, their access to work was quite difficult. And we must also remember that at the time, particularly in Britain, there was a Great Recession. So that's impacted on their economy. And there was a need to get people, more people into work. Plus, again, we could also look at the Margaret Thatcher, that was at the beginning of Industrial Revolution, which obviously cuts across from America to the UK, Russia, just across the globe like that. But there was one thing that came out very strong, proud to the time. In the middle of this revolution and campaigns, it turned out that, the middle class and the upper class, the women were mainly caregivers in the household. and they would only engage with the labor market as at when they choose. But that was not the same thing for the working class women who had no choice than had to work. So we had the rehabilitation of people coming from the poor houses. So back then, poor houses was meant for people who, because at the time, I mean, if you look at the late 80s and early 90s, it wasn't okay for a woman to have a child out of wedlock. It wasn't okay, you know, most of the things that we see now that we campaign about, like abortions and stuff, those things were not things that were said in the public. They were things that were said in the private. So it was a private problem in a private scene. But the feminist movement obviously were bringing private problems into public scene. And it was more of raising awareness and looking at the plight of a female. And this time around, looking at the plight of female in relation to relationship, because obviously a male around the year could access the labor market, but that's not the same for women, for female. You know, that was more or less the history behind it. And also bringing it to our African audience, obviously in 90s, remember the popular Belgian 95, you know, where we had the liberation for women, and, you know, all our women went from African countries. We went, and there was a declaration, you know, to empower women. But one thing I will quickly say in the middle of all of this is, like I kind of emphasize that the movement started from the West, because at the time, inequality is higher in the West and still remains high in the West compared to Africa and Asian countries, because we need to look at the way our economy works. We also need to look at the way our culture assign roles to gender, which we still preserve in the African continent and Asian continent, but that's not the same in the Western community. But unfortunately, the West have got the media, so the media is a big tool that trickles down. So we have the superpower and the poor countries, and that's where we are. So the 16 days activism obviously started off from there. It started back in 1991. There wasn't so much to it. They talked about it, but it wasn't as loud until 2008, when it became a bit louder. But it finally kicked up in 2013, and it became a global declaration, because there were things like domestic abuse was being looked at. There was, domestic abuse was being looked at. I think Lady Diana, the late Princess of Wales, she played a huge role in trying to raise awareness. And I suppose then there was a scandal of her marriage, which kind of, she had to lie low. But that was the beginning of that conversation, where they were talking about the impact of marriage. They were looking at what women had to go through, the subtleness of abuse. And so that was it. And over the years, obviously, since 2013, there's always been themes for it. So this year, for instance, the theme for the 16 days activism is awareness and accountability. And usually the 16 days activism runs from 25th of November up until the 10th of December. So so that's really what it is. And the campaign is mainly led by women, but that's because the voice that started the campaign was a feminist voice.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. I obviously give you a shot right on there because I know is your area. So I will now come to the starting points, so to say. Who is Wura Ogun?
All right. I've got many hats depending on where I'm meant to be. I think I would probably, for this context, I'm Wura. My name is Wura Ogunrotimi. I go by Olirote. It's a pseudonym I use on my social media because of the kind of job I do. Well, I originally studied as an accountant. Funny as it may be, I'm a chartered accountant. But then I've always loved social justice, and I've always enjoyed, campaigns and social justice. And while I worked in the bank in Nigeria, I kind of got involved, and There was no going back. So obviously when I came here, I just, just went on with it. It just so happened that most of the places I'd worked, the third sectors I'd worked, there was campaign, refugee council and all of that. So I was always involved, and accidentally I just became an activist kind of, but professionally, I'm a social worker. And due to my passion about understanding social justice, I decided to study social policy and sociology and masters in sexual reproductive health. Again, it all ties up back to my area of interest, which is looking at inequality and social justice and stratification. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, the global 16 days of activism is been on for a while. In your own view, what could you consider that much has been secured? I mean, in the area of progress and the impact that the yearly, because I think around that 16 days, all the discussions and code will be around whatever theme that has been chosen. So over the course of the years, when you now look back to the issue of inequalities within, whether from the angle of policies or just general community perception, would you consider that much ground has been covered, as there have been results and co?
I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and please permit me to do that. Now, on the policy angle, I think in general, I wouldn't say a lot has been done, and that's me being honest. I think what we've succeeded in doing is we've succeeded in creating so much. Yes, the awareness is there. There's no doubt about that. But when we look at it on a trickle down, so there's these policies have been made. For me, I call some of these policies artificial policies. And the reason why I'm tagging it artificial is because the policy looks at woman as a female, a woman or a girl child as an individual. It doesn't look at the holistic view of that child, of that female or male, of the female or the female or the woman or the male or the girl child. So when I say that, so we talk about domestic abuse, but what has happened is we've succeeded in, I mean, we all know that females are very vulnerable. Well, we're classed as vulnerable being, right? Yes. However, what the campaign over the years and the campaigns and the work over the years have succeeded in doing is creating a bubble whereby female apparently exist on their own. So, and I always have, for instance, I'll use domestic abuse as a very good example. So when we look at domestic abuse, we are focused on, yes, the woman is a victim, the man is a perpetrator, it's an automatic thing, right? We don't look at, okay, domestic abuse has happened, we agree, it's not acceptable. However, what has led to it? What has caused it? So, for instance, like in the African community, for instance, right? Yes. In Scotland, it's been highly recorded, right? There's evidence that has been recorded that the African communities have very low record of domestic abuse. It's not because it does not exist. It's just because it's not being reported appropriately. Okay. Right? And most people who report domestic abuse, most Africans who report domestic abuse, they don't necessarily want to separate from their partners. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, the research out there, the research, the documentations out there, that has highlighted that economic imbalance and harsh immigration policies is one of the major causations of domestic abuse or abuse for migrant communities, right? So yes. When we're looking at, so for instance, like most of the organizations who work with women, they would focus on the woman. So the first thing is the woman has to live there, which is right, you know, you need to be safe first. But in the process of making that woman safe, the man is being stigmatized or being labeled as a perpetrator. And then you find that all the laws is working to protect the woman, but basically work and at the same time pushing the man away. So they're not necessarily addressing the problem of abuse or that has led to abuse. They're just making the woman safe and labeling the man as a perpetrator. So the man in most cases probably would not get the right help because they're being, so look at it this way, is a labeling theory, right?
Yes.
So the man is labeled, right? And because he's labeled, the chances of him being able to attain what he should attain, when it comes to the labor market, the chances are very low, right? You need to look at it in an holistic way. Most times when domestic abuse happens, particularly for us, the African communities, it's not necessarily because the abuse, there's no excuse for abuse. That's one thing. Sure. And I have to put that out there. There's no excuse, whether male or female. There is no excuse for abuse. But we need to start looking at things in an holistic way, just like we're looking at medicine now, whereby in the past, when someone is sick, we just admit the medics administer medication. But now we're beginning to look at, okay, this person is sick. What about, is the environment contributing to the illness? Is their life, their life chances, is it contributing to the illness? So we're looking at a bigger picture away from somebody is sick. We're looking at how to make the community, how to make that person integrate properly in the community. We're looking at mental health. We're looking at you're looking at recreational centers like the gyms. We're looking at those things that would enhance their health, whereby it's not just a case of administer medication. And I think for the campaigns that's happened over the years, I don't think we have gone that far. Yes, there are policies, a lot of robust policies. But when just sir, when you unpick policies, you begin to see how they do not fit into the day-to-day lifestyle of these people, and that's where I think we are. Then another thing is, I think if there's any success that the campaign has brought, is actually created a Dragon's Den funding model where everybody jumps on. Say for instance, domestic abuse is what to get funding. Everybody jumps on that, and people begin to create funding application. They begin to create working pattern in order to get funding. So most times you find that it's not necessarily that they're working, maybe they're not necessarily working directly in the community, but because domestic abuse is a campaign that brings funding, everybody jumps on it. And in most cases, some of the people jumping on it do not even have a proper context of maybe what domestic abuse is, why it's happening. It's just what it is. So I don't know if sorry, I'm just throwing everything in at the same time.
Oh, that's fine. Because what we're looking at is to see whether there have been what could be put in as successes from those time, and then obviously you've highlighted some very important areas, where it comes to the awareness and what is available, and of course some of the areas that are not yet covered. You've also made a very, very relevant and very important point about policies, where on the face value, the policy is there, but when you actually sit down to assess it and to unpick it, you now really begin to look at, okay, this policy that has been made, has so things been considered. The policy comes to question, and if those areas are not considered, even if the policy is there, if he's taking it as, okay, yes, a big leap, we've not been able to get a policy out of this, but then at the end of the day, you look at the policy, you now look at, will this policy actually have an impact if it is not taken into considerations, things that needs to be considered. So you've touched.
And I think just to add to that, I think in Scotland, for instance, you know, we have this very robust policy on domestic violence and gender-based violence. We have a very robust policy. And then also that policy has incorporated Equality Act, Race and Equality Act into it. But when you actually unpick it as African communities, right? When we unpick it as African community, there is no service. And please, I mean, you can quote me, or you know, can counter the argument. There is no service whatsoever for Africans, right? Instead, the services that exist, they are for Black and ethnic minority. That raises a lot of questions itself, because it means all of us are lumped together. So when you say Black and ethnic minority, that's a lot of people being classified into one. But then we know that for the African community, Africa is quite diverse. I'm from Nigeria, and I know that Nigeria is a very diverse country. So, for instance, I'm from Ekiti in Nigeria, in Ekiti State, from Nigeria, Yoruba tribe. But then the services that will be available to me in my own tribal area might not be available to somebody who comes from maybe Ogun State or Osun State, you know, because there is diversity, even though we are in the same tribe. So, like, for instance, we have like organizations who apparently works with, I don't want to name names, but there's organizations who apparently work with Black and ethnic minority. But then I've worked in these sectors where when referrals are made, right, they find it very difficult to address the need of the African person who's been referred. So if you do not meet that box, for instance, you do not, you know, you can't get the help. Now, there was a very good example of a particular case where the person was fleeing domestic violence, but because that particular person was espoused to an international student, right? Yes. Because the person is espoused to an international student, now that person could not access, was not allowed to access domestic, you know, the safe houses. Meanwhile, if you go on most of these, again, I don't want to mention name, but if you go on the robust domestic violence, you know, the organizations that claim to work with people with domestic violence, they'll tell you they work with people without recourse to public fund. So if you cannot support somebody who is espoused to someone who is a foreign student and has no recourse to public fund, and yet on your website and on your reports over the years you've put you are supporting people without recourse to public fund, then the question is, who are these people?
Those people.
You know, so there are a lot of debates in there, and I suppose we can't finish it today, but there's so much, there's so much in it,
Okay, so
on his own, because it's not equal opportunity, you know, when you begin to look at it,
not at all. Let's talk about because obviously it's the African communities that will still zero this one in on, which you've mentioned briefly about it. In terms of the global 16 days of activism, is the African community engaged with this, whether in promoting this? And when I talk about the African communities, I want us to look beyond people that have organization. You know, let's say, yes, I have organization, so definitely if I get funding through that, obviously I will do some things during that time. But I'm just talking generally about because if that season, that 16 days is meant to bring up awareness and get people to be engaged, bearing in mind that if people don't engage with it, there's no way they will know about the services or what is available for them, the help and the services that is available for them, and even to get information as well as to be educated on some of the values. So looking at it generally with your own experience within the community, is the African community is fully engaged with these global 16 days of activism?
Again, I would okay, let me be brutally honest. When it comes to the proper African community, right? That's those without organizations.
Yes.
I would say the answer is a big no.
Okay.
Right? I've been to conferences and I've sat on consultations with the system, and I've actually sat with the big names, not necessarily African organizations, but big name organizations. And one thing I have always pointed out is when they produce report, they say we've reached out to the ethnic minority, the black and ethnic minority.
Yes.
But then when you break it down, what is black and ethnic minority, you find out that they didn't actually reach out to Africans.
Okay.
Right? Or even if they reached out to Africans, it's still people within the system or within their radar, right?
Okay.
So, and to be fair, in Scotland, as of 2011, that was the last census, yes. We have over 30,000 Africans across Scotland.
Okay.
Now, next year, they're going to have another census, and I can bet we would have doubled or probably tripled that number. Right?
Yes.
Now, the thing is, aside from those who have organizations, I wouldn't say we've reached out much, because no, that's not true. Because of the kind of job I do, and because I'm on ground, seeing what's going on in the community, some of the things that come my way, and questions that people would ask me or phone, things like that, I'm privy know that a lot of informations are not out there.
Okay.
People will still ask questions like, oh, what does consent order mean? Oh, what does, like, there are some things that, when you ask the host community, they know it. There are some things that when you ask other ethnic minority, they know what it is. Even if they don't know, they have somebody that knows what it is. But for the African community, people would turn up with stuff. I was telling you about a particular case yesterday. And the way the thing turned out, I was like, oh, I'm surprised. There's no day that I don't get surprised when cases come my way. Right? And that tells us that there's a lot of work to be done, because nothing has been done in the first place. Okay. And the African organizations who are operating, I mean, kudos to them, to be fair. Getting funding is a dog-eat-dog situation. That's why I said it's a Dragon's Den, the Dragon's Den program on BBC. It's more like a Dragon's Den business model. So if you know how to make so much noise and you know how to write very good funding application, you will get funding. That's just a reality. And most times the funding you're getting, because when you're applying for funding, is the funder who dictates what they want.
Sure.
So you find out that, like, for instance, I know the Scottish government had a 3 years rolling funding. And at a point, everybody, that I suppose at that time it was all about FGM. Everybody was jumping on it. And, everybody it was all dog eat dog. People were refusing to collaborate. People were refusing, it was very, very interesting politics. But unfortunately, the system has created that in a way that everybody is pitching for business instead of pitching for funding that would help them reach their community.
Yes.
So that's a big problem on its own. Now, for people within our own community, there are two ways around it. While the African communities are doing, the people with funding, with organization, they might try to reach out, but obviously they will only reach out to their circle. And the truth is, you can't make people do what they don't want to do.
Definitely.
Now, for the radio, I mean, I know you for a while now. You have a radio station that you run. The question is, how many Africans know that radio station exists? Some might know, some might not even bother to know what it is.
Yes.
And in between it as well, for us Africans, sometimes we're not kind to ourselves, right? I've gone to a place I approach particular people, to try and come speak to them about certain things, because there was a pattern of stuff that was going on within their own community. And I'd reached out, tried, just to speak to them, because he's not speaking to them because I want to show that I'm an expert. He's speaking to them in a way that they understand how the system works, and then that can reduce the concerns at the time. But the thing is, the first thing I got was, "Oh, you are not from this country," And then, obviously, even being a Nigerian, I've reached out to some Nigerians and they'll tell you, "Oh, you are Yoruba. Oh, you are," that. So we are not helping. But like I always tell people, when you get caught up in the system, the first thing they see is the color of your skin. That's how you identify. You are not identified by, I used to say to my son, when I came to the UK, that was the first time I realized that my first identification is not Wura. My first identification is I'm a black. Then I need to decide whether I'm African, British, or whatever it is. And my appearance describes me, identifies me, not my name. My name is actually the last that anybody wants to know, because that's how the system works. So on that basis, I think we have a lot of work to do. Even within us, within the community, we have a lot to do for ourselves, because we need to actively seek information. We shouldn't wait until something goes wrong, because sometimes having information saves a lot. Yeah,
you're right. Right, thank you for that. I think we are now going to a deeper section, and this has to do with involvement over time, and obviously the way you've mentioned also that in this global 16 days of activism, and is really about women and girls, or maybe just, it might not be the context, but the first thing that flashes out is the females are the victims and the male are the perpetrators. With this type of context, do we have as much males or men that are involved with this? Because at the end of the day, whether as a woman, maybe the woman will have a son who is a male, or a husband, or if it's a girl will either has a male as a father or as a brother. So we know that it's quite very important that every action that will be beneficial to either sexes, that the man, in fact, when it comes to the African context, the man is meant to actually be at the lead. So, but with the context of what is on for these 16 days, and the way he just looking at it from the face value, that takes one as a victim and the other one as the perpetrator. Have we seen males being very involved in this?
Yes, men. Funny enough, we've had a lot of male who are actively involved. But like I said, I think whatever we say, we need to realize how it all started. It started from a feminist point of view. Well, obviously, 1991 till 2020, a lot has changed.
Definitely.
There was a time that it was okay to have a cane and flog your wife in public. That was okay in Britain at the time. Yes. And when I say at the time, I'm talking up to early 2000. Right? There was a time, if people can cast their mind back, late Princess Diana, actually, out of joke, cracked a glass tumbler, wine glass on her husband's head, and it broke. Now, that was acceptable. That was far back in 93. That was acceptable in public. Now, if she was alive and she did that, we know what would have happened.
Yes.
Now, there was a time, you know, a lot of things are changed over the years and continues to change, right? So where I'm coming to with this is male, like I said, because it started from a feminist point of view, male were, unfortunately, the narrative was, because remember, it was the conservative feminist who campaigned. The conservative feminists are mainly the middle class and upper class women, right? So they brought about the whole narrative. And at that time, obviously, being divorced was not something that was acceptable. You wouldn't be allowed in church.
Sure.
And if we look back at the time, that was when Princess Diana divorced. And of course, it was a big shame. You know, she was ripped off of our royal title and stuff like that. And there were a lot of aristocrats, you know, who fell in that shoes. Now, back to us now. Over the years, particularly in the 2000s, we've had a lot of movements. We've had the lesbian, transgender, LGBTH. We've had their LGBTQ. Now have their movement, so which also has created a dilemma to that conversation, because it's not just a male. So when we talk about violence, it's not just a male-female. It's not an heterosexual relationship anymore. We're now looking at same-sex relationship, and that's another topic for another day. Because when we look at gender-based violence, it's actually showing that it's not actually male-to-female violence that is higher. It's actually showing that female-to-female violence is higher. The figures is higher, and that's actually debunking the whole narrative. But then, like I said, it's a topic for another day because it's a very big topic.
Yeah.
Now, for the male who were brought in to join the campaign on 16 days activism, a lot of time when they started coming in, the reason for coming in at the beginning was to get them to lend a voice to these vulnerable beings who were females. But over the time, so these men, obviously they came in, they joined and everything. But over the time, we're beginning to recognize or beginning to agree, because we've always recognized it. It was just that we're in denial. We're beginning to now agree that for you to reach a female, you can't just work with just a female. You need to work with everybody around her.
Sure.
And in the African context, in the African context, the man is a provider, the woman is a homemaker, right?
Sure.
So even if you have to work with the woman in the house, she still needs to reach out to her husband for guidance or advice or permission, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So that debunks, so that type of campaign, if you look at it in the Nigerian context, for instance, like on the African context, for instance, the African women are engaging in it differently compared to what the Western women are doing or the Western audience are doing. Because in the African context, it's very important. Our men, we still need permission because that's how our culture works. And I remembered there was one of the campaigns, I can't remember the year, maybe a few years ago, I needed to do a photo shoot for a particular campaign. And I remember calling my son and saying, can you come and help me in this campaign? It was the 16 days. And he said, Mom, but it's just a female thing. I'm going to be the only male. You know, and I mean, you know him very well. You know, the moment he said that to me, that really got me. And I had to start explaining to him and everything. And he could not see past that thing, that it was gender violence against women and girls, which he was right. And he said, so what about the male? Are we not going to be talking about them?
Yes.
And you know, that's where the big dilemma is. So I think, like I said, when I was trying to introduce it, we've created, in the process of setting up the campaign, there's been a lot of narrative that was created. And one of the major narrative that was created that brought about label is the male are perpetrators. They are seen as perpetrators. The female are seen as victims. And I think now, because of the LGBTQ community, because now when we talk about equality, it's not just equality between male and female anymore. You know, we have to have that big conversation. And that is beginning to change. And I think this year's campaign, for instance, I logged into the UN's Zoom 2 days ago, and the whatever, she was speaking, and she said, now unfortunately the lady there was a lady who was speaking from Canada. She's actually lesbian, and she said, I don't see myself in all of this, you know. Wow. and that's female. She said, I don't see myself in all of this. I need something that relates to me. So it's not even a man saying it, it's actually a female saying it. And she was questioning the whole thing around accountability. And from her story, she said she's just separated from her partner, who is another female, but she doesn't have a right to property. But if it was a male and female relationship, it's quite a different ball game. And there is question mark. So I suppose there will always be question mark now as it's all about enlightenment, isn't it?
Yes. Thank you for that. When we look at the African community, you know, like we've said and mentioned earlier, the male plays a vital role, both for the women and the girls. I mean, if he's got a girl, and that means it's quite very, very important for males to be involved in this. I want to believe that every man would want to protect his daughter or his wife from assault, although things could not happen in the house. But naturally, a human being will want to protect what belongs to him or her. So we know that it's very, very important for African men to be involved in this. Now, getting them to be involved, you know, like you've mentioned, you've created awareness and co, but it has to go deeper than that. How do we encourage our men to get involved in this and not restricting themselves to that context that, okay, we are considered to be perpetrators while they are considered to be victims? How could, what sort of, or in which way can we encourage our men to get involved in this, and which means basically standing up for their children, their girls and their wives?
I think we need to be very clear here with the African men. You see, like I always said, the African culture sets out the gender role in the household, right?
Yes.
So because the African culture sets it out in a household, men. Okay, let me speak for the Nigerian men, right? I'm a Nigerian. Let me use Nigeria as a very good example. Now, it's natural that my father would want to protect me and protect his wife. It's natural, right? And it's natural that he would want to empower me. For instance, my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, only had female daughters. He had 2 daughters, and both of them are PhD holders. Were PhD holders, because my mom is late now. They are both PhD holders. My mom went to Edinburgh University, and that was back in the 60s, right? She had a PhD in Harvard, which was not, I mean, for the narrative of girl child are suffering in Africa, that was not my own narrative. My mom, my auntie, in another way, she schooled in ABU, Ahmadu Bello University, and she had a master's and PhD in Glasgow University. Okay. So they had, I mean, for their time, they had the best of best, right? As a matter of fact, in my own household, my grandmother was more of the, what you call the hustler. She was a businesswoman, you know, and my grandfather was just happy being, he was an administrator, and he had his bicycle, he would just do his thing, you know? So he was never intimidated about his daughters or his wife. As a matter of fact, as at the time my grandmother died, she was much more richer than my grandfather, you know? But what I'm saying, I'm bringing this home because, you know, there's a narrative that is being put out. And I think we need to, I always say to people, we should be, like Chimamanda would say, beware of single story narrative.
Yes.
You know, we need to look at the context. Even in the UK that we're talking about, you know, it depends on the household, right? What happens in Morag's house, you know, from what happens in Margaret's house.
Yes.
So we can't look at Margaret and Morag in the same limelight, right?
You're
But
right.
for an African father, for instance, when they come here, most African fathers in our culture, in the Nigerian culture, it's natural that our fathers are the ones who provide for the household. It doesn't even matter if you had the money. Like my mom, for instance, she was a clinical psychologist. My father was a neurologist. But my mom never spent her salary. My dad provided it. Provided for the household, right?
Yes,
So
sure.
in that context, you know, he made sure we're fine. So when you look at the African man and you want him to get involved, we need to look at culture. What does our culture say? Because I think one of the things that is missing in most of all this campaign is the fact that for us, or people, campaigners or whatever, who are people who are at the forefront, we don't look at the culture setting. And that becomes a big, big problem, where we totally ignore the culture. There's an assumption that all African men, like somebody once said to me out in the place, he said, all African women are aggressive. And I said, what do you mean? Because I like to ask questions. And she said, oh, you know, you guys use your hand to talk. Your voices are always loud when you are talking. I said, but it doesn't make me aggressive. It's just the way I speak. And in my culture, it's just natural that I use my hand, you know, to make gestures. It doesn't mean anything. I mean, I said to her, I said, in the Western culture, when you sit down, you cross your leg. I was not brought up to cross my legs. You know, I just knew that I had to close my leg as a female so that, you know, a man does not see through my leg. It's not our culture. I went to a very good school. I went to a very aristocratic school in Nigeria. I wasn't brought up to cross my leg like the white who cross their legs, because that's not me. And that was not my culture. But I suppose raising my child here, my child has a different way of doing things, you know? So if we have to get our African men involved, for me, I think we need to recognize what our culture does and how our culture spells out the role of the male and the female. And also, we also need to recognize that we cannot patronize our men to join campaign. We need to come to them, you know, in a way that they understand it, in a respectful way. Let them be part of, because every African man that I've known, they will speak up for their daughters. If, like, there's someone that once said, one of my Ghanaian friends once said, she said, if you want to hurt my husband, touch any of my children, he will come for you like a lion. You know, and you know, it doesn't mean obviously that the person will pounce on you or something, but you know, it's just an expression.
Yes.
So naturally, our African fathers are protective. I'm not of any illusion that abuse does not happen in the household, in the African culture, but we need to approach things in a way that these people do not feel patronized. Because if I'm making an African man as a victim, if I'm making him a perpetrator, he's not going to engage. But if I come to him from the context of, if you're part of this is what it brings to the wilder world, you know, he will engage. It's just like our African fathers. There was a time, you know, when we're growing up, there was a time that our fathers do not partake in caregiving, in the direct caregiving in the household. But now you have African fathers who would cook, who would gladly cook. Some of them, when I was young, I had pictures of my father backing me. So it wasn't anything new, you know? Yes. So I think what I'm saying in all of it is we need to be culturally aware of the gender roles, particularly for the African community. Because the way I would approach a Caucasian is completely different from the way I would approach an African. And we see that in with the Asian community, where they are being approached with respect, because they understand, because they understand their cultural context. Like I work as a social worker, and it's just funny that when we go to homes of maybe an Asian person, we would naturally take off our shoes. Nobody told us to do that.
You're right.
You know, so that's food for thought. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. We just gradually running to the end of the interview. So let me take it on from here that if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best contact?
They can reach me through your media. I think that's easier. They can reach me through that, but they can also reach me on my private number, but obviously most times I'm not available during the weekdays, but weekend. But I think if they come through you, I'm more than happy, to reach out back.
Okay, that's great. And obviously the 16 days is still, it's still on. If people wants to follow any particular topic or group or discussion, how can they get those details of those, whether it's discussions or, I know most things are being done on internet these days, maybe through Zoom or so. So
I think for Scotland, the Scottish government have really been good. They have so if you go on their website, you have links of different activities going on for the 16 days activism. Yeah. And then if you want to go to the UN, just go on their online, or just different organizations like Rape Crisis, Women's Aid. Women's Aid have quite a lot that they're doing. I don't know if I'm not 100% sure, but I think they do stuff during that time. So there are different organizations. Just reach out, look at the organizations around you, look at what they are doing. Or I suppose because of COVID, there's no physical meeting, Yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much for joining us today, Ms. Wura Ogun. Obviously, you are just within my reach at any time. Yeah. I can always grab you at any time. So thank you very much for joining us today. And do enjoy the rest of the weekend. We'll definitely get back to you. From time to time, just to pick up on what is happening around. Thank you very much. And we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks so much.
You're most welcome. Thank you, our watchers and listeners, for connecting with us today. And we're going to apologize. We have the other two sections of our program not available today. Zainab, that's the Gist Launch with Zainab. She'll be back next week. That's next Sunday. And of course, also Things Comes Together by Chiefs and Esla. That would not be going on today as well. One of our team has a professional exam to deal with tomorrow. So we've given them time off to deal with that. Remember that next Sunday, we will be having Lola's reality show. That will be that's done every two weeks. So in place of Yoruba Referendum Committee. So they share the Sundays. So she will be right on here again next week. And of course, your Akpeke Ade, that's the Gio Fagunwa book, Ogbojode Ninu Igbe Rumale. We'll continue with reading that from again next Sunday. It's going to be on every Sunday. And please do stay on with us. If you need to get in touch with us, remember the number to call is 0141-391-1997. And of course, if you are sending us an email, please send it to oymediascotland@outlook.com. Remember, you could always leave comments on any of our videos. I'll pick it up anytime. And please do remember also to check us up on YouTube. What we're doing actually is splitting the program into each category, each presenter on YouTube, so that you can actually go in there and watch a specific program. Thank you very much for your support. All those that have joined us on Facebook Live, thank you very much. Please do head to YouTube as well. And the name to search for is just OY Media Scotland. You will get it there. Please subscribe and like our page. Until next Sunday, please do stay safe. If you are in Europe or Scotland or UK, like myself, the weather is getting colder. Please do stay warm. And people that are in other places, please do stay safe as well. Until next Sunday, this is signing out from us. Peace.